Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 317. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Reagan. Chris, good to see you today. How are you?
Doing okay. I woke up today at like 6 a.m. because they started construction on the outside of my room, like right outside. So that's
Nice.
really cool. Really
Jackhammer?
awesome. I don't even know what the hell they're doing. Like it sounds like they're flossing the wood foundation of my building or something. Like I don't even know, but had some interesting dreams.
Someone should put a space scene on the green screen to your left, or it's to your right, my left, so that it looks like you're the elusive man in Mass Effect 2. Looking out at the huge sun.
Yeah.
Someone do that. Someone that's smarter than me. Well, it's good to see you, Chris. Yeah. Good to have you here. Dustin Furman, executive producer, here once again. We don't know when you're going to be here and when you're not. I mean, it could be any moment. I mean, we're 6 days off, right? So
yeah,
this should be your last episode.
Yes.
Otherwise, Chris, Colin, Dustin Furman's getting overcooked.
Yeah, at that point, 1 week from today, he'll be 1 day overdue. So I'm going to go on a limb and say this is my last episode for a few weeks.
Ever.
But yeah, we're just waiting, Holly's no longer teaching, so she's just kind of floating around the house, being pregnant, watching YouTube. She's watching a lot of Time Team. I don't know if you know about this show, Colin.
No, what is it?
It's some show that aired in the UK that they go and they dig up different, places and try to find artifacts.
Cool. Yeah, it says first airing on Channel 4 in 1994, Time Team became one of the UK's most beloved and long-running TV shows.
Yep. It
aired from 94 to 2014.
That's all she does. She just sits around, watches Time Team, hangs out.
That's good shit. I have to check that out. That sounds awesome. I wish my mom used to say on Long Island that there was like a farm behind their neighborhood and they used to find like arrowheads back there and stuff like that. I've never found anything cool in the environment ever. Not one time. I found money a few times, like just sitting around.
I always think it's
really
funny.
Like a special artifact.
Yeah. People are like, "Oh, I found a shark tooth." Hey, idiot! Sharks aren't on land. It's not a shark tooth.
Wow. What do you think it is? Saber-tooth tiger?
Not a shark tooth. Do you see sharks around here? I don't think so.
No, but I feel like the water has changed many a time. The coasts, Pangea, everything's moving around.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't want to give any more credit to the ocean than we have to.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
don't overcredit the ocean.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to be here with you guys today. Unlike the last few weeks, we actually have a lot to talk about this week, which is nice. So I feel like people are getting a little consternated out there. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? I can't just make things. I could make things up. Half of you wouldn't have any idea if I was making anything up. Until maybe the game that I was faking existed, didn't come out, and then you would wonder where it is. You Googled about it, you didn't find anything about it. I understand that could be a little distressing for some of you out there. I got to show you guys these. So I bought these, I think it's called Jada Toys or Jada Toys, Jada. They released like a wave of Mega Man toys. These are fucking awesome, dude. I would have killed for this shit when I was a kid. Fireman. Fucking sick. Iceman. Now, what I like about Iceman is they have the nice little touch of his like little backpack, like his like cooling unit. Right. They got everything, super sick. So there's three.
Those are new.
These were well, I got these a couple months ago. Actually, they were in a sitting in the packages, but yeah, they're new. And there's 3 more coming. I pre-ordered them. It's a Lekman, Cutman. So they're doing all the Mega Man 1 guys. And then the third wave is going to be Mega Man 2, some like Woodman, Bubbleman. Good shit, dude. Really, really solid. If you're into Mega Man, these are the best Mega Man figures that's ever been by far. I mean, it's just incredible. Love it. Look how cool he is.
I'm glad you're opening them up. I appreciate that because I get the inbox collectors, but I feel like I can't fully enjoy it unless I open it. Not that I'm gonna. I mean, maybe I'd play with it. I don't know. Are you making little Mega Man scenarios?
I don't know. I need more.
Bringing in some Joes, maybe a little crossover.
Yeah, if I was a kid, I would be crossing everything over.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
But they're just these characters are just so classic to me. and to see them finally represented like the way they always should have been is just so cool. So I was excited about that. I highly recommend them to any Mega Man fans out there. We'll talk a little bit about Mega Man later, but those have been sitting on my desk. I was also playing a little bit of drums this morning. People have been asking about this China cymbal over here for some time since it's been sitting here forever. Micah got it for me for Christmas. I finally got another stand for it, so it's in the mail. So that should be up when Dustin, when you're gone and never to be seen again on Sacred Symbols. I'll put that cymbal back up there. I was playing a little bit of 311 before the show, so I'm feeling a little bit bouncy. Was playing the song Brodels from the Blue album, 1995 rap rock classic.
Wait, they have a Blue album?
They do, yeah. They came out the next year
after Weezer.
It's 1995, so it's the year after, yeah.
I don't know about that.
It's their third record, and it just is untitled, and they don't call it the Blue Album. Although Weezer, I guess, didn't really call it the Blue Album either.
Yeah,
but it's their self-titled record, and it's blue. So yeah, they just refer to it as the Blue Album. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's not the most. It is by far their most popular record, but it is not as popular as the Weezer Blue Album, which I also happen to love.
Oh, that's a 10 out of 10 album. There's not a bad song on it.
Yeah, it is a wonderful album. I mean, an iconic album for my childhood. All right. Well, that's it for the show. I have nothing else to say.
Yeah, that's it. Bye, guys.
By the way, each of these came with like a separate head, like a Mega Man screaming head and like a fireman, attack head. So I've taken those heads and I've put them on the in our kitchen. The handles on the cabinets have like they're like cylinders or whatever. And so I just popped them on top of each of them. And it looks like I have heads on stakes in my kitchen, which is already heavily Mega Man themed in some sense. So I have so much Mega Man shit down there.
That Mega Man figure looks, he looks strangely lanky, like tall and like, I don't know, like it's not how I imagined Mega Man, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the Baron Trump version.
The Baron Trump of Mega
Man. They made Mega Man bigger. Not like he used to be.
You can see like Fireman is probably a little taller than him, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I assumed he was like I'm thinking of the sprite specifically, and then I guess I think of really cursed versions of Mega Man, like the one in that TV show where he was kind of like tall and lanky.
Oh, Captain N.
Yeah, it's just like I think tall Mega Man activates my fight or flight, I think.
Fair enough. Captain N was. We were so excited about Captain N, the Game Master, when we were kids because it was all we could have ever hoped for, but in hindsight, it was so bad and really made no sense at all, but it was so fun. And it was a great commercial for Nintendo. Just made you want to play.
Yeah.
Nintendo. Nonetheless, I digress. Good to be here with all of you guys today. Thank you for being here. Remember, you get our show 3 days early and ad-free over on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Join 13,400-ish of your fellow listeners, paying an average of $5 a month for their subscriptions, getting all sorts of perks in return. We appreciate you. Early ad-free access to Sacred Symbols and all the other shows our network does, including our Xbox show, our Nintendo show, our gameplay show, and so on and so forth. Access to Sacred Symbols Plus, our supplemental podcast, every single week. You'll get that in video and audio form. Jaffe's going to be doing a mailbag soon, which is interesting. So that will go live imminently. You can ask him all sorts of weird shit. Can't wait to see what he does with that. We just did a 2-hour podcast all about Pentiment, which was a lot of fun. We had Cog and Micah on for that. And so we talked about that game. We've done Sacred Cross Duke recently, so you can go check that out. Dustin interviewed the local proprietor of the retro game store in his town. You can go check that out. Rise of the Erd Tree.
Rise of the Erd Tree. My favorite expansion.
That has its spoiler cast and review discussion, as does the Destiny 2 expansion in the final shape. So go check all of that out on Sacred Symbols Plus on patreon.com/laststandmedia. And you can support us by buying merch at laststandmedia.store, shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, etc. Come see us in San Diego, September 6th for Sacred Symbols versus Defining Duke, a quiz show for the ages. You can find more information on tickets at bit.ly/Sacred Dukes. That's bit.ly/SACREDDUKES. We hope to see you there. We'd love to see you there. Many seats still available, so come join us. San Diego's a lovely city as well, so if you're not from the area, stay a while and enjoy the sights and sounds. All right. The audience had a lot of good write-ins this week, and so I thought we would go through those to begin our show, as we often do, stretch our legs, or spread our legs, depending on what I said a few weeks ago, apparently. We'll start with Sourdough Norsk, who wrote in and said, "Bros, let's talk bread." That's appropriate considering your name. I was silent the first time it was brought up, but this utter silliness about freezing bread and you can only toast it at that point is ridiculous. I worked in a grocery store and in the dairy and freezer department for 5 years. And you know what we did with the bread? We fucking froze it. Time to stock it, get it out of the freezer and put it on the shelf. Freezing bread literally happens before you buy it. And you can't tell the difference, but you can tell if you freeze it at home. Nah, dog. P.S. Now he's getting a little upset because he says, leave the fucking butter on the counter for a month and it's still fine. No different from Crisco in the cupboard. I do it all the time and haven't gotten sick or died. That's fine. We're off the butter topic though for now. So let's focus on the bread topic. I'm having such a difficult time understanding how bread is frozen and then it's not wet when you defrost it. Like I just don't understand that. You take you defrost chicken.
Right? Yeah.
You don't defrost chicken on your counter without putting it on a plate, or a lot of people defrost it in their sink when they're at work or whatever. And what happens to it when you come back? There's a bunch of water and condensation that is melted.
Right.
So I don't understand how this isn't happening with bread. I'm not saying it does or doesn't. I don't know. It's you take a cold beer out of the fridge, and then you put it down. And you come back a half an hour later. There's a bunch of water where you put it down. Yes,
I guess. Right. The issue, I guess, is with chicken and liquids, there is a lot of water to extract. And with bread, they're kind of it. I don't know how to explain it either, but every time I freeze bread a lot and I defrost it and there's literally no water to be seen. And I don't know how to explain that. I don't know why that is. I assume there's just not a lot of water in bread to begin with, and that's probably why. So there's nothing to create, but I've had no issue freezing or unfreezing bread and having it like be wet and fucked up or having to, now I've unfrozen the bread. Now I can only toast it. Like that's never really been a thing.
It's so interesting. Like I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Where is the water coming from on the beer bottle?
The water inside, I assume, right?
No, that can't possibly be right. That can't be.
Not literally, but like there's like it's the temperature change. In addition to the fact that it is liquid, there's liquid in it. Chicken, there is liquid in chicken, no?
Yeah, but I don't think that's a sufficient answer for me, no.
I don't think these are accurate. I mean, there's probably scientists listening to this like, what the fuck are these idiots talking about?
Don't write in about it because I can't take it.
It has to do with water. Because if you took your Mega Man figure and put him in the freezer for 3 hours and you took him out, it's not going to be wet.
Yeah,
sure, if it's cold and the humidity is high, he might get a tiny bit of condensation on him.
Right.
But something about a can being cold attracts more water. I did look this up. I can only find a Reddit thread. It says when you freeze bread, you don't add water. Then you thought, and the only water there is, people on Reddit can't write. Was in the bread from the start. No, I just can't read.
Yeah.
There's nothing that could make the bread soggy. That makes sense because there's very low moisture, we'll say, in the bread.
Yeah, condensation is more about like temperature, like humidity and stuff.
Right, but if you, it doesn't matter. Let's just move on. Sourdough Norsk, thank you for writing in. And no one write in about this because I can't take it. It's like one of those puzzles that I'm never going to be able to solve. I'm just not smart enough. Here's another puzzle I'm not smart enough for. Michael wrote in and said, hey, what's up, guys? Colin, every week I hear you correct your sons and press releases on less versus fewer, but I never hear you correct anyone over the I versus me rule, and that one drives me crazy. It is such an easy rule of English to follow. Just say the sentence in your head without the other person, and your brain will tell you that me go to the store and he went with I is wrong. This happens probably every single episode of Sacred. For whatever reason, people decided that just defaulting to I sounds correct and smart, but it absolutely does not at the end of a sentence. Dustin read along. They came up to Brad and I. Well, that's not right. They came up to Brad and me would be right. Brad and I went to the store is right. Brad and me went to the store is not right. Because me go to the store and they came up to I are not English. Thank you for your time. Colin, please continue to make sure your boys and soon to be your grandson are speaking the King's English. I've gotten this in the past, and I'm just going to be honest with you. And I was a writer, right? Like I've never understood this rule, and I still don't care. I just say whatever is right, like whatever feels right about this. People have sat me down and explained this to me over and over again. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I understand like what you're saying, but my mind for some reason can't connect like saying that stuff in my head and then translating that into what I'm supposed to say. I'm not a mathematician.
I think Michael needs to read the room. This is Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. Have you heard the last 5 minutes where we were talking about fucking frozen bread and condensation? Can't comprehend that. You think you're going to bring this up? Michael, congratulations. You're the only person so far to be more annoying than Colin when it comes to language that it just doesn't fucking matter on this show. So congrats, Michael. You get the award.
More annoying than Colin. It's interesting.
Oh, man.
Just saying, when it comes to these, you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. It's kind of like you were talking that shit on Twitter about you finishing One Piece. You talk for someone that expects to be paid for 3 months.
Michael, not you, Colin. Don't get defensive.
For someone that expects to be paid for 3 months without working, you certainly are talking a lot of shit close to the boundary line, are we not?
You're being defensive. I'm shitting on Michael, not you.
Okay, fair enough.
You are catching a stray. I'm being honest. You are catching a major stray, but it's not something that I haven't already expressed, that you're listening to a conversation, here.
Yeah.
Now, Colin, you want to bring up the One Piece thing. Do you know how long I've been holding on to that clip?
Oh my God, I know you've been waiting.
I know,
I've been waiting. Now, I did lose it because I knew that it happened shortly after, but then I forgot where it was. We had our boy, our Constellation chronicler that has all the topics.
James Solar.
James Solar, right. James Solar, I knew I said, brother, help me out. Within 5 minutes, he came back with the clip.
Scary shit. We have a chronicler,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get away with anything anymore.
Certainly not.
I feel like if I said anything truly bad, it would have been found already. I know I didn't at IGN because I was too paranoid. So you'd have to really just go with kind of funny and I think we're okay.
Well, certainly. I mean, right now the bar is to simply not engage in inappropriate, relationship with a minor.
Right.
I've cleared that. I believe both of you. I know you guys pretty well.
Very low bar. Yeah.
I found that it's been pretty easy, to just not do that.
It's not a hard bar to not,
Well, I don't know. Is it? Certainly, it seems like people in this space.
I know people bust that streamer Ninja. By the way, how did he get away? I've said this before. How did he get away with that? Everyone was Ninja something like 20 years ago. And then he's like, I'm Ninja. And now I'm just Ninja.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Well, it's kind of like Prince, where it's like, he's not the first Prince.
Right. But nonetheless, Prince. And then briefly a symbol and then Prince again.
Yeah.
But people bust his balls because I saw a video of him going around recently where he was reiterating that he's like just never alone with a woman or doesn't talk to women kind of privately or whatever. And I'm like, it's weird, but I don't blame you. It's like, why? Well, just stay away from just 0% chance of any drama that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess, yeah. The only counterpoint to that is just like, why don't you just be normal? Like I get like it's as easy to just be a normal person,
sure,
as it is to just like avoid an entire like 50% of the population. That's kind of, I guess, the thing. It's like, why do you need that barrier if you could just be a normal person?
Right. Yeah,
it's a little weird. It kind of, I don't think this is true necessarily, but it kind of like, I could see people interpreting that as like, you're keeping yourself away because you can't control yourself or something. Like I get the impetus to be like, that's a weird like bar to set for yourself where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna isolate myself from like 50% of the population because I don't know what could happen. It's just like, just be normal.
Also, I don't understand. So I'm like a D-list internet celebrity, right? I was at my most famous probably during my IGN days, like famous in quotes. And I was never very famous, so I didn't have like people knocking my door down or anything, but I've made some good friends and some solid connections through my professional career by talking to random people from time to time, whether it's at a show or usually DMs. I just have my DMs off so no one's DMing me, but someone will email me or whatever, or a friend of a friend will reach out or whatever the case might be. So I think it's important to like network in that way if you can or if you want to. But what I don't understand, and this is like where things get a little weird, like a little philosophical for me, is like you're many, many, many magnitudes more famous than me, right? So now you have people, and I'm talking about a ninja or whatever, right. Or like one of the Dr. Disrespect, one of the people that actually did something wrong. And it's like basically the world is your oyster when you're that famous, right? You're that rich, you're that famous. why are you talking to kids?
Yeah.
Like that to me, it's just like you can just talk to a normal adult. Like you are a famous, wealthy person. You have the pick of the litter, and you're being a fucking weirdo degenerate talking to children inappropriately because you want attention or something like that. Like, it doesn't wash in any single way. I'm not saying it would be normal or good in any situation. What I'm saying is like, you specifically have so much to lose and so many options that you should never find yourself in any sort of distasteful, illegal, whatever situation. That's the fucking craziest part. How little consideration they have for their own situations. That's interesting to me, because the more money I've made, or the more things have gone well for me, professionally or whatever, and things have kind of solidified, the more risk averse I've become. You would just think you would be maximally risk averse in that situation. It's crazy. Like, these people, just from any situation, from a moral or ethical standpoint, from a logical standpoint, it's all fucked. It's why I don't know, man. You don't really ever know anyone unless you're someone I think you do truly know people you know in life, but people you watch and listen to and all of that. Yeah. It's very strange. It's a strange thing out there. Did you see, because I love the Predator Hunter videos, that, Alex Rosen, who's like the heavyset one that does it. He's famous. People would know me. He's I Fight for Kids on Twitter. They caught someone and the guy killed himself.
I saw it. Well, I didn't see him kill himself, but I saw the clip.
He killed himself on camera?
No, like they're outside his house. The guy goes inside and shoots himself. Yeah. And then they handcuffed the dudes, like the predator catcher guys, but then they let them go, I guess, and all that. I'm like, man, it's crazy shit, dude. I actually have on my topics here, my short list for Constellation, our conversational podcast, is vigilanteism, because I want to know how people feel about it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
All of the unintended consequences of your vigilantism. This is one of them. It's like, are you kind of responsible for it? Interesting. So we'll get into that on Constellation in the near future. I don't know the answer, by the way.
Did you see the clip when they're talking to him before he, kills himself?
No, because it's not up on his channel yet, because I don't subscribe to his locals or whatever.
The clip I saw showed before, and then they showed the police. So it wasn't, you don't hear like a gunshot or whatever happened. But the things that this guy was saying will, of the Predator videos I've seen, this is the most heinous thing I've heard anyone say. Which maybe for you, since you're a connoisseur of Predator Hunter videos, maybe not. But
this guy, Alex Rosen, is an expert at getting people to say shit. And he does it by being very unassuming. You should watch one of his videos. They're usually like 2 hours long.
Yeah.
And like how he deconstructs these dudes. It's very clever, because he gets them incredibly comfortable to admit all sorts of things. And he's like, and they'll admit to like the most heinous shit you've ever heard of. Yeah, for sure. Stuff with little kids, like toddlers, infants. It's like,
oh my God, dude.
Wood chipper. Do you get it? That's where you belong.
So this guy had like a crazy, like a long list, like even by Predator standards, of like just stuff that he was admitting to. Is that what the kind of thing is with this guy?
I'm not sure, because the clip was so short, but basically he was explaining some of the content that he watches. So like it shows them talking to him, and then it cuts and the police are knocking on the door, and then they're busting down the door. So, but yeah, pretty crazy.
He was going to go to the wood chipper one way or the other, I guess. But it's just, dude, reality TV out there. You know what I've been really into? I've said this time in past, because I come and go with it. It's just body cam footage of people going insane when they get arrested for making things so much worse than they were. Like a girl getting, Mike and I were watching a few of them last night, like specifically like late teen, early 20s women getting arrested for DWI or whatever. And yes, on Long Island, we call it DWI. So shut the fuck up.
That's crazy.
DWI. And it gets so bad. Like, I couldn't imagine, to the point I was saying to Micah, like, how do you ever live this down? even if it wasn't on camera, you should see some of this shit, dude. It's crazy. They have to like putting them in like binds and like putting like anti-spit masks over them. And it's like, dude, you just got pulled over for a DUI. Like it's bad, but you're making this so much worse. Shout out to the body cam, dude. What a revolution we obviously wanted to see if there was abuse of cops or abuse. I should say abuse by cops, but certainly abuse of cops or whatever as well. But it's had this unintended consequence of just infinite amounts of footage to go through, and people, I guess, FOIA it or something, and then put it together from different angles and just put it on YouTube. And these channels are huge, and it's amazing. And it's just a story. There's like just in the beginning they'll set it up, and at the end they'll tell you like what happened to the person, but otherwise it's just real time. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I have no idea what we got on this topic. Shout out to Ninja. I don't even remember why we were talking about him.
Shout out to Ninja and his that clip of him trying to get everybody in New York City to do the fucking Fortnite dance in the rain and nobody doing it. That's what I love that video. So I put that video on at least like a couple times a month because it brings me so much joy.
I don't know. I got to be honest. Like I'm not. This happens all the time, but Ninja's a really overt example of it. Where I'm like, I have no idea what you really do or who you are. Like I know what he looks like because he started making the rounds in like pop culture. He was on like Ellen and shit, and I remember seeing that kind of stuff pop up.
Yeah,
but usually I have no idea who these people are.
Yeah, he's an esports figure. I remember him from like because he played Halo competitively a long time ago, and then he switched to Fortnite or something, and then he just streams. And he's apparently just really good. I've not really like watched anything that he's ever really done. I've been aware of him for a while, but I think that's what he just streams stuff, and he's very competent at competitive stuff. So I think that's his whole thing.
It's the same thing with Mr. Beast, where I understand that he's like a philanthropist of some sort, and he does like a lot of good shit, so I don't bust balls about that at all. But this trans person that works for him or whatever, and then I was looking this person up, and I'm like, this person is massively famous, and I don't even know.
Yeah, no,
exactly. Who this is. And I watched a Mr. Beast video. I watched a few of them actually, and I can't believe people watch this shit. Again, I am dissecting the quality of the videos from the good that he does in the videos. I think it's very cool. It's a really cool idea. This guy could have run away with tons of money and seems to just put it all back into the next project. I respect the shit out of that. So it's very cool. I'm not saying that, but these videos let nothing stay on screen for more than half a second. Oh, it's great. The camera constantly moves. It's constantly cutting. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is insane. This is insane.
There's no breathing room.
I have no idea what the fuck I even just saw.
There's no breathing room in his videos at all. It is kind of insane. I actually know a friend who was actually a part of. I think it was technically an NDA, but like. He was a part of a Mr. Beast shoot that went really horribly wrong, like recently. Like people collapsed in the desert because he's doing this crazy like 2,000 person game show. I don't know if this will even happen by the time all said and done because it was just so chaotic. But he just like didn't feed them properly, and they're in the Nevada desert. And like, but my friend was like, "Yeah, I was a part of the shoot, and then I just left because there were people collapsing." Like I think there were like 3 people who had seizures or something. So, like, Mr. Beast is strange. I don't really know what to make of him because on one hand, he takes all the plastic out of the fucking ocean or something. Like, I saw, like, some news report or something of him, like, I took all the fucking garbage out of the ocean. And I'm like, there's no shot that that's true. But even if it was, that's not really the problem. The problem is that there's trash that we can't get rid of. Like, what are you going to do now? You're just going to let it fester on land? Like, what? It's just going to go back into the ocean.
Yeah, you got to shoot it into space or something. We need a space elevator.
We do
send all this shit up on. What he should do is he should have a battle royale competition on the island in the Pacific that's made entirely of plastic bags.
Right? Yeah.
That makes me. I don't like. Chris and I are on the record as hating the ocean. Right. I think the ocean. Right. I grew up on the ocean. I have a respect for the ocean, but I also hate the ocean. And if it evaporated forever, I would not even give a fuck. But I do feel bad that there's a plastic bag island in the ocean. Makes me sad.
Right. Yeah. Did you see that did you see that there's like now plastic infused like rock that's starting to occur because there's so much plastic everywhere?
It
crazy,
doesn't
man.
feel surprising. I mean, there's plastic in our balls. Why can't plastic get in the rocks?
I know,
You know?
I know. Yeah, it's all, and then we wonder like why everything's like turning to shit. It's like, I wonder if it's the unavoidable percentage of plastic surrounding us at every given moment that's probably not really good for us.
I can't wait
What
to
if
see
that
the
has
video of
anything to do
Mr.
with it?
Beast removing the plastic out of 10,000 men's balls
Yeah.
in a 3.5 minute video with 720 jump cuts in it.
I removed 10,000 pounds of plastic from 4,000 men's balls.
He's doing the face on the thumbnail. You know?
Interesting thing about him is that Elon Musk had kind of courted him to go to Twitter to try to post there. And he wanted to see, I think, how much money he would make there. And then I think it ended up working out like really well for him. And so he like just posts his shit everywhere now. It's kind of interesting, like wherever you can get it.
I want to
Cool.
I want to start like a competitor Mr. Beast channel where I go and undo. I'm going to call it Beast Mister. And I'm going to undo it. I'm going to take all that trash. I'm going to put it back in the ocean. I'm going to blind 1,000 people who can see. And just so there's no, just to keep things balanced.
Right. Yin and yang.
Yeah.
Dr. Light and Dr. Wily.
Right.
All right. Let's see. This is an interesting one from Luke Feltner. It says, "Hey, CDC. I find myself in the midst of an ethical dilemma and seek your counsel. Roughly 7 months ago, I met a man at our local bar and we really hit it off. We went back to his hotel room and spent the night together. As a bisexual man in the Midwest, such an encounter is incredibly rare, so I was able to remember his name. Fast forward to today, when I recently saw the very same name on a campaign sign in someone's yard. Turns out that this man is running for the Senate seat in a district adjacent to mine. Much to my chagrin, I also found out that this man is staunchly opposed to gay marriage and other rights important to the queer community. Do I have an ethical obligation to make our encounter public? Should I hold my tongue to avoid outing someone against their will? Thanks for your input, gentlemen. I'll hang up and listen." This is very interesting.
That's mega interesting. Ooh.
This is hard because my gut tells me like you don't want to get involved in this. You know, if this dude didn't do anything to you and you had a good time with them and like you had your one night stand or whatever, I feel like you just leave it there. I understand that there's some, it's weird. I would wonder, I don't, it's none of my business. I don't want to know. But like what state you're in, who's against gay marriage at this point? Gay marriage has been legal for 12 years all across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to, why are we even fighting about this anymore? Why do we even care?
Well, it's because there's always people trying to pull things. I mean, you saw it happen with Roe v. Wade. You know what I mean? Like, there's always people like trying to pull back things. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, I don't know, fucking Mississippi or something. Like, it must be a crazy. Well, what did he say? He said Midwest. What Midwest?
Yeah, I guess he said Midwest. Yeah, so Midwest. Okay, so
that's a strange.
Iowa, Indiana. Like, I don't. It's just. I guess it's just strange to me. Like, I could understand you being like, gay marriage is against my religion or whatever. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But like being civically against it at this point seems so strange. It's a right that already exists. And everyone knows gay people. Like, I feel like homophobia is kind of gay.
Homophobia is pretty gay, honestly. I think. I mean, literally, that's kind of. I mean, to be actually, if we want to be real, that's kind of true. Did you see that? The the Grindr servers at the RNC collapsed?
Yeah,
because they were like, which is like no surprise, of course, but like, that's a wild situation. I would say, just on a gut instinct, just don't get involved in something like that because, like, what do you need the heat for? Like, it's just going to complicate your life. I would, though, personally, probably personally confront the person. I'd be like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? You know, at the very least, that's the height of, I think, your ethical duty is to, if you see somebody interpersonally, like, espousing something that they are outwardly hypocritical about, and then attempting to seek a position in which they would foist that upon other people, I think you have a duty to at least confront them interpersonally about it. If there even is an ethical quandary here, I think that's probably it. You know?
Yeah, I'm in agreement that are you, Luke, ready to be under the microscope? And not just you, but your family as well, which I guess maybe it's not like a national election, right? But
Yeah.
still, regardless, this would be pretty sensational on a local level. So I would expect max scrutiny. And so, are you ready to do that? I would say just let it go and not vote for that guy and encourage other people to not vote for him if that's how you feel. But I would even be concerned if trying to reach out and contact him, because he might just act like he has never met you, because he would then realize that you have dirt on him. These politicians, I'm not saying they kill people all the time, but he might blackmail you or try to figure out dirt on you. Politics, scary game.
My whole thing is because it's not an active situation that involved him. Like, I'm trying to think of a situation where I'd be like, yeah, you should say something. I'd be like, if you just encountered him in a bar and he called you the F word, and that's like, okay, then like, well, obviously we're going to just like go after you generally for that kind of thing and ratchet up, you are anti-gay in some sense if you're against gay marriage, whatever the case might be. I'm just trying to think of situations where you might be more actively participating in it. And so it's like, okay, but really, I don't know the person's personal situation. Maybe he's married or whatever. And again, I'm not saying it's right to cheat on your spouse or whatever, but it's just not, it's their business. It's like the people involved business,
Yeah.
I'm kind of sensitive to that sort of thing. I remember when I've said this in the past recently, when Ashley Madison was hacked like all those years ago, I was like, oh, that's kind of fucked, not because it's not funny and not because it's not like whatever. And it because it's like, it's not illegal. Like you're just ruining these people's lives for making bad personal choices, which I'm not crazy about that. So yeah. But there is a hypocrisy in the guy's stance that is obvious, but you could be outing him as well. You would be.
Right.
And it gets all into like why I'm frustrated with the Republican Party or many of the reasons I am, but it's just like conservatives can be gay and gay people can be conservative. And this shit needs to just be put to rest so that we can court gay conservatives to be comfortable being out, because this dude would just be a gay politician or a bisexual politician in a normal world where he didn't feel like he had to hide his proclivities. It's fucked up. I don't like it. People should just be able to just kind of be straight, bisexual, or gay without any judgment, as it's been for time immemorial. Gives a fuck. My God. Like, I've always felt that way. Maybe it's because I grew up and knew gay people in my family and friends and stuff like that. And so I was exposed to it early and was just like, oh, okay. I've told jokes about how my mom had a cousin who like had a roommate.
Yeah.
And like when you're a little kid but they were roommates for 40 years. And it's like Vito was his name and they lived in Miami. And Lindy was his partner's name. And it was just kind of normalized to me. So maybe there is like a nature versus nurture kind of thing in that, but I just don't understand why anyone gives a fuck. That has always been my stance forever. And I remember being at Northeastern, I might have told the story on Constellation once. I was friends with this girl who was in like this, it was lesbian, gay, and bisexual at that time, just LGB, normal pride flag stuff. Because this was many years ago. This was like 20 years ago. And we were friends and she had like a shirt for her organization and she knew I was a Republican. I was like into the Iraq war and shit at this point. And she was like, I was like, oh, can I have one of those shirts? And I remember her being so surprised. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck, dude. Like, I don't care about this gay marriage stuff at all. And I just never did. And then I remember being in California for Prop 8 in 2008, which was the gay marriage amendment to the California Constitution, and how big of a deal it was to people there. And I'm like, I don't understand why anyone cares. So with that spirit, I just don't think outing someone is a good idea in a conservative place where he feels like he should even have those opinions or can or whatever. And obviously they're contradictory, but
right.
This is a tough one, Luke. Interesting. Good luck to you. And stop having one night stands. They're dangerous.
It's true.
Onyx, and by the way, I'm being totally earnest. Like,
no, that's very real. Do not do that.
The diseases are too insane now. Like you gotta show a little restraint. Get to know people.
Yeah.
Or goon out like Dustin does. Onyx
Certainly.
Osprey wrote in and said, "Sup, skibbity symbols. Last
Ew.
episode, I couldn't help but notice Colin used the phrase deadass not once but twice. As a fellow millennial who is regularly inundated with Gen Alpha memes, I must inquire as to whether Colin is also displaying the brain rot infection or if he uses deadass in its innocent historical context. Keep up the Riz, Sigmas. I mean, dude, I'm a Long Island elder millennial. We grew up saying deadass.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it sadly because I think this is what you're referring to, Onyx, is like, sadly, I'm unironic when I use it. I'm using it because it's been part of my vernacular since I was probably like 7.
Yeah. That's,
you know,
that's an old phrase. Like I'm confused. Is this question insinuating that this is like a Gen Alpha phrase? Like that can't possibly.
well, because he's saying,
assumed to be true.
I think I understand what he's saying, Chris, which I think what he's saying is Gen Alpha has revived it because he says, am I using it in its innocent historical context? And the answer is yeah. It's just part of my lexicon. I feel like it always has been.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't say it very often on shows or something, but I don't know, man. I'm using it earnestly, and it's a great word.
Yeah.
Good.
It is good. It's authentic New York. I remember that being like a very New York thing very early on. Like I remember hearing it a lot in high school, college. I think even in middle school to some extent I remember hearing it. So it's, I don't know. That's just always been a phrase forever.
Deadass.
In my life anyway. Deadass.
I'm a little annoyed with the, he mentions the Gen Alpha memes because go back probably over a year and a half now. You can hear me shitting on Ohio all throughout this podcast, but now the Ohio part is part of the Gen Alpha meme. So I feel like I was a little ahead of the curve on that.
You're the progenitor?
Yeah. Now, I don't know. Have you guys interacted with kids these days? We were talking about not in the way we were talking about interacting with kids earlier. Different way. But
that rules.
When I was at Cedar Point, I heard kids saying all kinds of shit, saying like, on a roller coaster saying like what the Sigma and stuff like that. And I was like,
oh my God.
I thought this was.
What the fuck does that mean? That's a thing?
Oh yeah. I included a light Sigma joke in the timestamps of Sacred Symbols a few weeks ago because we were talking about Sigma Star Saga, and I listed the timestamp as what the Sigma Star Saga. No one caught it.
I just thought you were illiterate probably when I saw it,
No, yeah. But yeah, no, the kids do talk this way, certainly.
I saw a story earlier where it was like something like 55 Chicago schools have 0 people reading or doing math at their appropriate level. Oh my God. It's like we're back to Russian serfdom or something like that. It's crazy.
The plastic, man. I'm telling you, there's no way it's not the plastic. It can't. I really feel like in my heart of hearts, it can't not be the plastic. Because I really don't think anything else, with the exception of like maybe like the internet, and maybe, I think that's absolutely part of it too. But like the double whammy of like internet instant gratification plus plastic has probably been like a absolutely fatal fucking blow to humanity as far as like development goes, and as far as like just survivability on like a basic framework that we've grown accustomed to for a very, very long time.
The thing with the plastic in the balls, though, we don't know if it has any effect if they're just floating around in there. We may find out with our kid. What if he's a plastic man?
He's gonna be a little plastic boy.
A little plastic boy. I mean, that certainly.
Chris Colin Dustin Furman is Plastic Man.
Plastic Man,
right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. My assumption is that it can't be good. That's my assumption.
Now, have I interacted with? Yeah. So like, I have 6 nieces and nephews, so everything is through them as conduits.
Right.
But I don't feel like they're not very unusual, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe they're just Moriartys and they just understand them in some sense. But I did like the one thing that's getting me when I you're at like a store, we were at Publix, and like I noticed the bagger had this is like the Patrick Mahomes hair. Like everyone has like the curly. I don't understand what the fuck what's going on with that. You know, I thought it was one man style or just the curly hair and stuff. But like I feel like people are like perming their hair or something.
Well, when me and Dustin were kids, it was the big thing was like not the bowl cut exactly, but like kind of like the Bieber kind of thing.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Where it
like did a swoosh.
Yeah, not
even.
You're
right. It was like a helmet. It wasn't a bowl cut, but I know what you mean.
It was just long, kind of straight, somewhat kempt, somewhat unkempt hair was like kind of the thing. Like I remember, like everybody. I remember, dude. Both what is it? Ian and Anthony from Smosh had it. I remember fucking like a lot of kids that I knew had it. A lot of big YouTubers at the time had it too. Like I think Shane Dawson was like this kind of like this long haired thing, and now it's this kind of broccoli popcorn chicken looking fucking thing that everybody's wearing now. I wonder what it's going to be like in 20 years. I hope it's the reverse mohawk. I hope everybody intentionally shaves the center of their head to have like a Heihachi kind of cut going on. That'd be exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. We're recording, right? Yeah, we're recording.
We are recording.
Sorry about that. I got an important email I needed to answer immediately. So usually something pops up and I look it over there and then I can look away. But when I saw what it was and who it was, I was like, okay, I gotta. And it's nothing exciting. So don't be like, oh, it's fucking Neil Druckmann and it's The Last of Us Part 3. It's like, no. It's nothing.
He sent you a code.
He sent me a code. Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
A download code to the script.
Oh, we're gonna read it live.
They were gonna read it live. Tom V.
White.
LA. Don't do this.
Elvis Lewis wrote in and said, "Hey CDC. In the last episode, Colin, you mentioned that you will be in Vegas after the San Diego show. I'm currently a depressed mailman in Vegas. Where will you be staying? I'd like to meet up with you and shake your hand, maybe buy you a drink and even take you and Mama Mike at a Cracker Barrel, where we can hopefully share a fart or two. Let me know."
Oh,
Elvis, can I just live my fucking life? Can I just be, you know? Can I go on? Everyone's always saying like, Colin, you should go on vacation. You should take time away and like time off. And it's okay if you don't put an episode up every once in a while and this and that. And I never fail. And then I try to finally just get a little away with my wife a little bit. And Elvis is inviting me to Cracker Barrel in Las Vegas. It's appreciated and it's from the heart. But can I just have a vacation, please? I'll be gone for 2 days. And then you guys can bust my balls again forever. Elvis, I appreciate it. You're very nice. Thank you. But just from history's, the knowledge of history, a depressed mailman is the last thing I want to get involved with right now.
Yeah. Goodness. Especially in the Vegas heat. Like that's gonna be. You're gonna be in Vegas you're actually after the show. It's probably gonna be a pretty good time to be in Vegas. That's not too bad. Could be a lot worse. I was just in Palm Springs and it was like 112 degrees and I was like, oh my God. I don't know how people survive and live in this climate.
It's fucking gross. Palm Springs is gross. I hate it. Dimitri E wrote in and said, hello, gents. With the Summer Olympics happening, I'm curious as to which event you're most excited to see. My wife and I have a whole schedule printed out to track certain events and athletes so we can watch as much of the games as possible. Whatever. I mean, I will definitely tune in when I can, but it's like whatever's on, you know. There's nothing spectacularly interesting to me in Summer Olympics. It's good stuff though. I guess soccer would be in there, right? Baseball one of them.
Yeah. I don't know. The Olympics in general is probably like the biggest thing about like human culture that makes me feel completely alienated from it. Where like I should care probably, but I really do not give the slightest shit about the Olympics at all. Or like who takes home the fucking, I don't know what the Olympic Cup. I don't know what I don't even know. I have no idea what the
medals.
Fuck they even
you
do.
win medals.
Oh, is it medals? I don't know. I'm not even. I have no fucking clue what goes on with the Olympics. At all.
The Summer Olympics are just. it's cool. Like, it's amazing. I think it's amazing what these people are able to do in all these different athletics. But the Winter Olympics is where it's at for me. I just think it's so much more exotic and interesting. You have things like skeleton, where they're like flying down ice tubes like 200 miles an hour. You have amazing high level hockey being played. You have really cool, weird shit like curling. You have all of the snow sports and the ice sports like figure skating and all that. It's like so much better. The Winter Olympics are so much better. Plus, the Summer Olympics are in Paris. Good luck with that. Have fun.
It's unfortunate that's the only place in Europe I've been.
Oh, really?
Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a long time ago. But I don't really care about the Olympics either. I don't really have a way to watch it unless they stream it either. So usually the only times I've seen a Summer Olympics is if I'm somewhere like a restaurant that has TVs on or something like that. But you're right. The Winter Olympics, I like to see the curling. I don't know what's good. They're, polishing the ice. It's pretty neat.
It's good shit.
The Zamboni racing.
Zamboni racing.
Dude.
That's what I want to see. Crazy shit.
I love the ones where they like do cross country skiing and then they randomly shoot shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like a big beta test for sports that never come to pass in some way.
Truly. Truly. Yeah, it's interesting. No, the Summer Olympics are fun too. I wish everyone the best over there. They're gonna have a good time representing the country. There was someone in my neighborhood who we just knew because this is a new thing. I don't know, Chris. I don't know if you've noticed this because you haven't really been in the suburbs very much recently. But Dustin, I don't know if you've noticed it. When I was a kid, no one put signs in their yard for like any reason, except for maybe a political sign or something like that. But now people use signs for like, they'll be like happy birthday on the lawn. So I guess when the person comes home, they like see it, or they have a sign that says like, our kid just graduated from high school, or our kid's going to this college, and they put these things on their lawn. Is this a thing in your neighborhood, Dustin, at all?
I don't know if I've seen a birthday sign outside of a birthday party to indicate people like, hey, this is where the party is. You see signs for like a football player.
Right.
The team, the number, stuff like that. But I don't know, not too many signs outside of politics, I would say.
This has been expanded. It's funny you say that the football thing, because I was exposed to that for the first time ever in Varsity Blues, the movie, where they have like one of the quarterback has like a sign in his yard or something that he lives there. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I grew up in a pretty prodigious football community on Long Island, and I never even heard of that. Anyway, I'm fast forwarding to say that one of these random signs that people put in their lawn now was like, oh, our daughter is in the swimming Olympic trials. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't remember her name, and I don't know if she made it or not. But anyway, that was a long-winded way of saying, why is everyone putting signs in their yard for all these different reasons? It's crazy.
Yeah. I haven't noticed. I remember like when I was a kid, when I was young, the big like there's a birthday party happening here was really just balloons on the mailbox. I remember that was like a common thing, just so people like if they were invited and they hadn't been over many times, or if like they had like a cousin driving them that didn't know the exact address, it would be like, oh, hey, the balloons, that must be the party. But I mean, even the short time that I was home kind of recently, I didn't notice signs that weren't like political. Although like when I was a kid, I remember like seeing all the political signs and just not knowing who the fuck they were and not caring. So I'd always be annoyed at all the fucking litter, or like what I perceive to be litter, like all over the place. Like, what are these signs? Who the fuck is McClellan? Who the fuck is that? It's insane.
Someone took on one of the main roads here. There was like a Biden Harris sign, and then someone took it and just spray painted Trump on it.
Oh,
and stuck it in his own yard.
We do have so this isn't a yard sign, but there is, I think it's about 15 minutes away from here. Some guy has a big digital sign that has been on the front page of Reddit many times for putting extremely offensive stuff on it. Like I'm trying to remember, like definitely, I think one of them used the F word and not the fuck F word. The other one, one of them had like Biden, but he was like Hitler, like photoshopped as Hitler, stuff like that. And this guy's gotten in trouble for it. But it's one of the just added to the list of things Butler's famous for. There's quite a few of them now.
I know, man.
Recent.
Dude, if Trump if we were on a different timeline and he got killed there, your town would become like a worshiping ground in some sense, like a holy spot.
Yeah.
Your property, like your land would have gone up probably 3 times or something.
I was thinking about how the building that the shooter was on is an AGR building, American Glass Research. And so I'm like, we have our own book repository now. Mm-hmm. The AGR roof, our very own
school book depository. That's right.
I don't know if you guys have.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't know if you guys have felt this, but I feel like we moved on from that pretty quick.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like kind of no one cares anymore, at all. And it's just like, wow, that's kind of like a big. I imagine it's probably bigger in Butler still, because that's where it happened. But I don't know. How do you feel? Dustin, is it still are people talking about it every day still?
Yes. I was actually I've eaten out at a restaurant 2 or 3 times. Colin, son of a bitch, Colin. I knew.
Fucking unserious group of people. Oh my god.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've been to a restaurant 2 or 3 times. And 2 out of 3 of them, I've overheard conversations about it.
Yeah.
So people are still pretty lit up about it. But I'm guessing, I don't want to say it will reignite, but right now the annoying thing is that they're not saying anything about why. There was that big hearing with the Secret Service director that she basically was refer to the FBI. So yeah. I'm sure more will come out and then it'll be a big deal. But yeah.
By the way, it's not that you said you were eating out at a restaurant. It's that you said I was eating out and then stopped talking.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Can a man take a breath on a podcast?
Never.
Can a man breathe?
Not allowed.
Can a man think?
Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow?
Can a motherfucker live a life, as Leon would say in Curb? All right. Jay McGraw wrote in. Said, Dustin, with Herman Furman's arrival imminent, what is your plan for entertaining yourself in the downtime at the hospital? Are you bringing the Switch, Steam Deck, or maybe bringing a full-on console and plugging it into the hospital TV? Gonna see if you can work in rounds of Balatro in between rounds of Holly pushing? Best of luck and health to you all as you start the crazy journey of kids. Dustin, what's your game plan?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not just bringing the console. I'm bringing my own TV as well. Got to have OLED in the room. I can't deal with the hospital TV. I was joking that on Steam Deck, could I complete Sekiro while we're at the hospital? Theoretically, if I trained up a little bit, I might be able to do it. But ideally, being realistic, we're waiting as long. I don't want to say as long as possible, but some people, is the moment they get contractions, go to the hospital, which basically means you sit in a room and have contractions for potentially hours before it's actually go time. So we're trying to wait. I think it's that when contractions are 5 minutes apart, that's when you go to the hospital, not the first sign, or else you're just going to be waiting in an uncomfortable room. So ideally, there won't be very much downtime. But if there is a lot of downtime, maybe I will play some Sekiro. Get to Kenichiro, see if I can do that. Might be fun. Between pushes, though, I think you're asking to not come home, maybe be killed at the hospital if you're doing something like that.
Yeah, I feel like maybe just be present,
Right.
That's all.
Some people are in the hospital pre-giving birth 18 hours or more. And they're just sitting there in a room. If you go super early, which is hopefully what we're not going to do. But I will tell you guys, I've watched a few first time dad advice videos on YouTube. Most of them are terrible. I was thinking about it. I was like, man, I wonder, like, what's the weird cases of men that are like the father or whoever that are there during delivery and like how their response. I was like, should I mentally prepare myself? Like, what could happen? Found out a lot of men faint during it, but I've never fainted before. But I thought, like, what if I get sick, feel like nauseated? I don't know. I've never seen someone give birth before. I never had to watch the tape in high school.
Yeah.
So it'll be just mentally preparing myself for any amount of horrifying things.
Yeah, you'll be fine. It's exciting. How do you feel? Are you like you must be in like some sort of stasis right now. I mean, it really could happen at just any moment. Now that's been true for a while now, but it's becoming every second that passes that reality is magnified. Like it's coming. It really is going to be soon.
Right. Well, yeah, it is. I don't want to say annoying because that makes it sound super negative, but it is kind of like, well, Holly's not working, so we're mostly just staying at home, but we're also not going to just like wait here until it happens. But so it's kind of like, is today going to be the day? Is it going to happen in the middle of the night? Should we have bag pack, we're ready to go, but we are just kind of in a limbo where, I was like, I wonder if I'll record Sacred this week. Even last night, I was like, well, what if tonight's the night? What if Holly wakes me up at 4 a.m. and she's like, it's go time? But it's okay. I'm willing to, he can take his time. I was a little concerned. My mom got COVID like a week and a half ago, but now she is symptom free and she's clearing the she's getting negative tests. So we were worried if he came then that when they come up, she wouldn't be able to see him initially. But everything is set to go. But just a matter of when. Could be right now.
I never took a COVID test.
Never.
It's interesting thing about that. I'm sorry, it's a non sequitur, but I was just thinking of that. Like I don't even know what you have to put like a swab in your nose or something, right?
Yeah, you have to shove it into your. You have to basically lobotomize yourself with a Q-tip.
It's so bad
through the nose. Ugh. It's really fucking uncomfortable.
Some of the
I'll just die. Thank you.
Yeah. Some of the at-home ones you don't need to stick in your like far up. But I went to one, like I had to do a drive-through one at a CVS or something, and they just this little thing right tickle your brain.
Oof.
And it like immediately makes your tear ducts go because something is in your fucking head. You're like, do you say thank you after they pull it out? Like,
they still,
a lot more you can use that one.
Do they, when they do STD tests, they put the little Q-tip in your pee hole, like the little thing?
Oh,
yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
I've never done that.
Really?
Yeah, I've never done it.
Still do, but I think
STD test
or like something specific like that they're testing for. And that
might be like a very specific test, yeah.
Yeah, it's like chlamydia or something. I don't know what it is. But at my gamut of STD tests, I had that a couple times, like where they have to like kind of like get a swab.
How far down? How many inches?
It's not very far down, but it feels like.
I really hate this conversation.
Every millimeter is a mile when you're talking about your urethra.
Dude. It's like you're playing around with. It's not supposed to go that direction,
That's like a catheter. I've never had a catheter before, but how far down does that need to go?
Yeah, that's bad news too. In the they talk about a catheter getting pulled out of a guy in the book I was just reading, like as he like shifted too badly, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Oh man, dude, this is
oh my god,
like nails. Like this is my nails on a chalkboard. I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Like this, it's actually fucking. It's so visceral to imagine. But like I think I don't know. When was the last time you did? When was the last time you got one of those urethral swabs?
Probably. I've gotten STD tests multiple times, and it didn't happen every time. It was like earlier in my STD test quest. When I was like in college and out of college, and by like then maybe they just let you pee and shit now or something.
I think now
but I also peed into things and did blood stuff or whatever too. It was like a very specific thing. I don't know what exactly. Please don't write in about this either because I just can't.
They must have better ways of because I've definitely done that and I've not had to insert anything. Thank God.
I don't know what that was all. Maybe do you think they were just fucking with me?
The Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Right.
Shove it down his pee hole.
Right, don't shove it down his pee hole, bro. You're in the back room laughing behind two-sided or one-sided glass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hold on. You
sorry,
said you said STD test quest.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like this, I immediately thought, like, what's the platinum at the end of that
Oh.
quest?
It's like you just want to make sure you're okay.
Clean
Right.
bill of health.
Yeah, like I
your
would
quest
be
is at an
nervous
end
to
now.
not do that, like in between situations or whatever, just to be safe.
Sure. So I was saying the quest is over. You've reached the end.
Oh.
It's called.
Sorry. No, I thought you were actually calling for me. She called me a slut.
Oh.
No, I don't want to like pass anything on to someone or something like that. That would be like, how do you live that down? Yeah.
That's a really selfish thing to do also. Just
Totally.
Point blank.
It totally is. I wouldn't be able to live that down. All right, Jay McGraw, thank you for writing in. That went off the rails, I think. Dustin, we're excited for you. I mean, this is going to be your last show for a while, I think. So, but I think
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Colin, Dustin Furman requires a few more weeks in the oven. You know? So
Weeks. Oh my God.
it turns into like a whale pregnancy where it's like 18 months or something like that.
Yeah.
My God, is that kid done yet? I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's gonna be-
They won't even let you do that now. By like a few days after due date, they'll induce you.
Oh,
Interesting. They won't let them cook.
Oh, they won't let him.
What does that,
cook.
what does that
like,
do? What does that do to be overcooked? Is that, do you see? Because I know there's like premature birth is pretty dangerous because you're like, you're missing
Right.
your fucking eyes or whatever the fuck. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. But like, if you're overcooked, do you just get like more like what? Like what happens? Exactly.
That's a good question. I wonder how long was the longest human pregnancy?
2 years.
All right, let's look. Longest human pregnancy. 375 days.
Oh,
370.
what? That's insane.
What year was
How?
that?
Over 12 months.
What year was that?
All right, I'm reading. This is from Google AI, so this could just be from Reddit because it's the
There's
first
no
thing
way
that
that's
came up.
real.
Another one came up though that says 375 days. 1945.
Okay.
Dang, before the plastic.
That's
So,
it.
But the year we
Yeah.
dropped the bomb.
Oh, fuck.
We got a real Laurel and Hardy thing going on over here right now.
Yeah, we do. That's, I mean, I will say, the viewers can't see this, or the listeners can't see this, because this is purely in the way that Jay McGraw wrote the question. But I really hate the way he spelled Herman.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
Like, there's something about it that's like really, because he's HERMIN, which is for some reason so much uglier
It's awful.
than just normal Herman.
It's awful.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, he spelled Furman FURMIN as well.
Yeah.
right, like vermin, he spelled it.
Right. Not the right spelling.
Not nice.
Jay, thank you for writing. And we finally come to the portion of our show where we talk about video games.
Hey.
Only taking it's like an hour. It's fine. All right. This just went up today. And it was kind of more of an FYI because we don't have much information on it apart from this. But we reported like a couple of months ago or so that you would start being able to use your PlayStation VR2 on PC using a special dongle. You also need to have like some sort of special third-party plug. I have no idea. But overnight from when we're recording, it was placed on Steam, the PlayStation VR2 app with a release date of August 6, 2024 from Sony Interactive Entertainment, PlayStation Publishing. And it says here, enjoy virtual reality games and apps on Steam with PlayStation VR2. Play VR games and apps on Steam using your PlayStation VR2 headset and PlayStation VR2 Sense controllers. Set up your PlayStation VR2 on your PC. Update the firmware for your PlayStation VR2 headset and PlayStation VR2 Sense controllers. Adjust settings for your PlayStation VR2 from the Steam VR dashboard, including setting your play area and screen brightness. So that's all you can do in like kind of the rudimentary, I guess, app or whatever that they're releasing for this in order to interface with Steam. And it says you'll need the following, as we already know, to do this. You'll need the headset, you'll need the Sense controllers, and you'll need the adapter, which is available separately and will be available at PlayStation Direct. I don't know if it will be available. I assume it will be carried by third parties, right? So you can probably get those there as well. I'm not going to mess with this at all, but I know this is exciting for some people. Any interest here? Dustin, maybe you'll get lost in VR while Chris, Colin, Dustin Furman sleeps at night.
Maybe. Yeah, if the barrier to entry, the $60 adapter, I have a Quest 2, and so that's a free option for me to play. Not free, but free. I don't have to pay anything more to use my VR headset on a PC. So because it's so expensive, and in addition, it's kind of annoying. This is a very minor detail because most people, their PCs have a Bluetooth thing in the motherboard. Mine doesn't. So I would also need to buy a Bluetooth adapter to make this work, which it's like, dude, if your adapter is $60, just have that directly interface with the controllers, that box you have to plug in. So I'm not interested, but I'm sure people are looking for ways to get more use out of their PSVR2 that is potentially collecting dust right now.
Chris, assuming you don't take the deal for your PSVR2 unit for the Rise Against tickets, will you put it on Steam?
I mean, so here's the thing. My brain says, sure, why not? But my heart says, no shot. Like, I know myself well enough to know that thing's going to be sitting in there for a while. It's going to be sitting in that box. And every time I think about like, man, I should hook this thing up, I'm immediately dissuaded. Even just taking it out of the box. I don't know, man. There's something about VR that it's not exactly compatible with the way that I like to enjoy my free time. Like I feel like every time that I've enjoyed something in VR, I've really had to push myself to really get over that. It's almost like working out in some way, where like going to the gym sucks, but being at the gym is fun and good. Except in this analogy, like getting over the hump of unpacking everything sucks, but then playing the game is just kind of okay in every scenario. So I don't know. Probably not in all likelihood.
Yeah, I can't even pretend anymore that I'm interested. I really was never pretending that I was interested. I want to be interested.
I know what you mean.
It's an authentic want. It's kind of like how I want to understand opera better. I don't like it, but I would love to love it.
Right.
You know,
it's like faking confidence until it's real kind of thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, VR. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Like when you make it so easy that it's comical, then I'll do it. But I don't even know how that would work. Anyway. So August 6th, for those that are interested in making that connection, I'll be interested to see how it does.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to matter very much, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither.
All right. This comes from Twisted Voxel, the website Twisted Voxel, which we don't cite very often, but they have a really interesting story here that's been making the rounds that should get us excited about PS5 Pro. At least it gets me excited because this makes it very real indeed. Their story is entitled No Man's Sky PS5 Pro upgrade data mined, visual improvements revealed. And they write, quote, "Hello Games No Man's Sky has received a significant update recently," which is supposed to be very good, by the way. "And a data mine of the update files has revealed specifications for a potential PS5 Pro upgrade. The leaked specifications were found in the update files released by Hello Games. This patch includes a customized graphics preset for a new hardware, codenamed Trinity, in the update files. This codename aligns with the rumored internal name for the PS5 Pro. The first image is for the Trinity graphics preset, while the second one is for PS5, and so they show these two, and they just show, like, it says, quote, based on the graphics preset, the visual improvements for No Man's Sky do not seem to be substantial. The dynamic resolution scaling settings have been increased from 0.6 to 0.8, indicating a higher average resolution. This could mean a bump from an average resolution of 1300p to 1800p. Some graphics details have been upgraded from high to ultra, like the water quality, but these changes are minor. There do not appear to be any significant enhancements to visual quality." So we don't really know much about the machine yet. We have really tantalizing rumors. This is pretty much dead to rights as far as I'm concerned, because the PS5 Pro's name was reported as being Trinity. This is it. I mean, it's funny that there's some skepticism, in my opinion, that this thing exists still from some corners, where I'm like, this thing definitely exists. Now we have more. I mean, I would think that it might literally exist by this point in some factory somewhere. But I'm very, very excited. Chris, does this tickle you? Are we getting close?
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I think It's nice to feel like there's something brewing again, even though like we know like logically like we know like as adult obviously there's always something brewing, but it's nice to feel like we're like really in that space where something's about to drop. It's exciting, refreshing, and I think PlayStation as an ecosystem, as a space, really needs this. This refreshed interest.
Do you think they'll call it the Pro?
I don't see why not. I feel like Sony just seems to be like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and if it is broke, we'll never try it again type type entity. And so I don't see why they wouldn't, especially because everybody kind of understands at this point like what that nomenclature means, and I feel like trying to establish a new type of terminology just is more trouble than it's worth, really. Getting over the hurdle of PS4 Pro in the first place was kind of like wild to me, because I remember even at the time, like I think both of us were kind of like, well, this came out before we even did the show together, but I remember being kind of like, well, why would I need that? Or like, what's the point of this? And now it's like, oh, everybody kind of understands. And so I think they'll keep I think it's still the PS5 Pro.
Dustin, does this get you excited? You might miss the show we do for PS5 Pro if it gets announced soon, but I don't think you will, because I think it'll be announced. I feel like Tokyo Game Show, right, is where they're going to start talking about all this stuff. That
would make sense around the timeline.
That they're going to be at the show, for the first time in 5 years is alone a sign, I think.
That PS4 Pro had its own dedicated event, but they could just be doing it all in one, of course. So yeah, people are pointing out that they're upgrading the dynamic resolution from a 0.6 to a 0.8, which someone actually crunched the numbers and what that means. And so it's still not running at a full 4K on PS5 Pro. So some people, assume like, oh, it's just showing that this thing's not that powerful, which from the leaks that we've seen, the actual GPU isn't necessarily that much stronger. I'm still going back to, I'm most interested in the stuff, the secret sauce. That's what Digital Foundry says, the secret sauce of it, which is like, what was it? PSSR, the upscaling technique, which Hello Games might not have access to if it's maybe some kind of like dedicated hardware thing.
Or they might not want to do it. That's another important thing that people have to note is like, it's going to be mandatory eventually to support Trinity, as far as I understand, beginning in September. But, and that has been reported. That's where I've read it. But I would imagine some of these guys are like, do they really give a shit? Or do they have other things to worry about? So I think they just have to show some sort of effort in that, but I don't think they have to like go all the way if they don't want to.
Right. And that's the thing about specifically resolution, is that I find that resolution is absolutely important, but it's not the end all be all of things. I always come back to Demon Souls remake at the launch of PS5. The performance mode, I believe, runs at 1440p, and it is still top 3, maybe the most beautiful game that I've played on PS5 from end to end. It does not look soft in terms of its resolution at all. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Hopefully, like you said, Tokyo Game Show. It'd be nice to know soon. We've been theorizing about this thing for a year now, maybe more. So I'm glad to finally, hopefully, get some actual details.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It just feels like, I know we've been saying this forever now, so it is comical. Certainly, it's like they have to say something at some point about what they're going to do, but it really feels like it has all been hinging on the Pro, and maybe re-revealing Wolverine with it and getting a few new products out there in the wild that people can start talking about, including Ghost of Tsushima 2, I would imagine. I wouldn't be shocked. And again, I have no inside knowledge on this. I truly don't, but The Last of Us Part 3, like, I feel like they've been coy with that, and that's obviously a game that they've been working on. I feel like that would be preposterous. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was just, and again, this is just gut feeling kind of thing. Not really a gut feeling, but just a theory that it could be, because I don't know for sure. But like, you could imagine that game even being ready in the next 18 months or something. It would just be wild for them to have this console to show, a price drop of PS5 Standard Edition, which would be, I think, essential. and then saying like the console is more affordable than ever at the time we're now going to hit with A, B, C, D, and E. And whatever those are, I think can be very exciting. But I think it's also clear that they're kind of turning the ship away from the games as a service thing. I think this started before Jim Ryan left, because I think that you're already seeing some fruit, or you'll begin to see fruits of it much sooner. But it's going to take time to get away from that too. And I think that they've wasted a lot of time, which is why I think you see a lot of second party games, timed exclusives, shit like the China Hero Project, like just trying to extract games. Huge relationship with MiHoYo and the gacha games that they have going on that are only available in the console space on PlayStation. Like they're showing people something. You can tell that they're trying to fill the gaps. So bad decision making behind the scenes probably, but we've been critical of that for a while now. We'll see how it all comes out. But PS5 Pro, man, I'll be all over it. How much it's going to cost, I think, is a big question. All right. Oh, David Blight, you had a inquiry here we didn't use. I'm sorry, I'm deleting it. All right. This was up on the PlayStation blog in recent days. New firmware beta. So it says here, new PS5 beta rolls out tomorrow with personalized 3D audio profiles and new remote play settings. Beta participants using the latest slimmer PS5 model can also test adaptive charging for controllers. So it's interesting. The new PS5, I guess, will have some functionality, or does have some functionality that the core old PS5 unit didn't, in terms of the way it can interact with accessories and whatnot. So we'll see what that's all about. But they write here in part, quote, thanks to feedback from our PlayStation community, we've introduced many new features and refinements over the past few years to enhance your gaming experiences on PS5 starting tomorrow. We're happy to roll out a new PS5 beta that introduces personalized 3D audio profiles for headphones and earbuds, as well as the ability to limit remote play access for individual users. Additionally, PS5 beta participants using the latest slimmer PS5 model will be able to test adaptive charging for their controllers. So if you've been selected in, we've referred you to these websites before where you can sign up. But if you've gone there, I think in the past, you will maybe get an email in the coming days from when this podcast goes live to join the beta and test things out and provide your feedback if you'd like. Have you guys ever participated in any of this stuff? I haven't ever done it. No.
I'm too risk averse with betas after trying iOS betas, which are, of course, notoriously buggy. I've not heard of anyone bricking their PS5 or ruining anything, but better safe than sorry for something I use that much.
There must be a way to like unwind it, right? I mean, it just feels that would be really hazardous. You could potentially destroy people's PS5s and have to deal with that. And you feel like we would have heard stories if that ever happened. So to your point, I feel like it's probably fine, but I've never been invited and I don't know. I do update everything immediately when I see an update available. I probably shouldn't do that, but it bothers me that it's like the little red one over the gear on iOS that'll just stay there until you update your fucking phone or your watch or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, fine. Speaking of firmware updates, there's also a firmware update available now, version 2.05-09-60-60-00. Why do they have to number things like this? The big thing with this update is you can invite players to your game sessions now by sharing URLs. So that's pretty cool. So this will work with QR and various URLs, and so you can kind of insert yourself more quickly into games using the app, I guess, on your phone. And you'll be able to interact with game help action cards now using voice command, and then all the boring shit with stability, DualSense controls, and more. So check that out. Guys, I was curious if you saw this. I was thinking of you because we've been talking about this for so long. College Football 25 is out, and it's huge. As we said, it was going to be on the show. And this was reported by IGN, which I thought was a really remarkable piece of information. 2.2 million people were willing to pay $100 to play College Football 25 3 days early. So the deluxe edition of College Football 25 from EA, the first college football game in more than a decade, it was $70 to get the standard edition, but $100 to get the version, the deluxe version, which comes with some accoutrements, but part of it was 3 days early access. They didn't make it. The game grossed $220 million off of that, just alone. Now, have you guys seen anything circulating about this game? It's exactly what I had assumed. It's like a huge phenomenon with the right kinds of people that will push more casual games to get people into console gaming. or to pay attention to it again. It's great to see. I'm amped for the success of this game, though I won't be playing it.
I'm curious. I swear I saw this in a tweet somewhere, but certainly this is selling consoles as well. Because as you said, there are many people that I know of that were holding on to their old NCAA game from, Xbox 360 or something like that. Or even I knew someone that he wasn't into video games at all, but he played NCAA and he had an Xbox 360 as of a few years ago. He's like, that's all I play. And if they ever come out with a new one, I'll upgrade. But until then, I'm good just playing this. And so I would imagine certainly there's people that maybe aren't that extreme, but now that it's here, they're like, oh, sweet, this is my game. Now's my time. I'm getting a PS5.
Well, to that point, Albert Hendrickson wrote into us on Patreon, said, yo, hello from Missouri. I'm wondering if we are missing out on the biggest system seller of the year. I work at an electronics store and we have been selling PS5 like it's Christmas. Can you guess the game that people are buying their new PS5 with, or that they are saying they're buying their PS5 for? The answer is College Football 25. Unlike Madden, this game is next-gen exclusive and is definitely pushing console sales. It seems like this is one of the games that is helping people over the hump to make the jump from PS4 to PS5. It's interesting because I thought about this and I was like, I think still that the console that will benefit most from this is actually Series S, because it's the cheapest thing. And if you wanted to if you don't have a new console, I would be unlikely that you give a flying fuck probably about fidelity. Yeah. You want the experience, the deep statistics, all of the rest, which is going to be the same on Series S and Series X. And that's going to be the cheapest console. So I'm really curious if that console has been doing extraordinarily well above all others because of it. But it's clear that this game is huge. Alex Camejo wrote in, said, hello, Jimmy's Chicken Shackers. I love Jimmy's Chicken Shack. Do you guys know that band?
No.
Baltimore rock band. College Football 25 is here. I know you three are not players of sports games and active in its community, but I just wanted to share how massive the debut has been for EA Sports. Over 700,000 concurrent players at one point during the early access period at $100 a pop. Insane numbers. You do the math on how much money they've made so far. I'm loving the game with its fun and fast gameplay and attention to detail and presentation for over 130 schools. Wanted to hear your thoughts. I'll hang up and listen. Go Jets. Alex, thanks for writing in. Dude, it's just so fun because there's such a fun vibe with college football. And it's not weird really. It was complicated to like get licenses and rights and all of that and everything that was going on with players getting paid or not and how everything's straightened out now. But this is such an obvious huge hit for them to do every year that it's remarkable it took them so long to figure this out. And, it's a little bit annoying because I feel like no one was really talking about it. Like it didn't. I'm somewhat proud of us on this show for talking about the game immediately when it was announced and talking about it repeatedly, saying like, this is going to be huge. Because it is like, I guess if you're outside of America, you don't realize how fucking huge college football is. And Paul Messman wrote in about this, said, howdy, Colin. In the wake of the College Football 25 release, I can't help but find the lack of buzz in traditional gaming circles fascinating. Statistically, college football is the second biggest sport in the U.S. in views per game and attendance, only second to the NFL. And crucially, way more Americans have a local college team than an NFL team. I've heard you say repeatedly on the show that this game would be huge, but somehow the game's size has caught the rest of the game's media by surprise. EA announced that millions of players paid an extra $30 to play the game a few days early, and anecdotally, I've seen literally dozens of men at my job and online say they bought a new console just in order to play this game. Why is there such a blind spot for games media on what may be one of the biggest system sellers in the generation so far, pending official data? Is the games media uninterested in cultivating the sports game audience, or do they reasonably assess that sports game players have tunnel vision for only sports games and Call of Duty? Appreciate you all. I'll probably be listening into this episode while texting teammates to cheat on exams as a freshman quarterback in College Football 25. Dude, the create a player and like do the legacy modes and all that sounds so cool in the game. I think of my old roommate in college, Doug, who I've told you guys, like he was so into the NCAA games that he would just like play as many years as possible in these legacy modes and these franchise modes or whatever it was, career modes, and not even play the games, but just like have the simulations and just look at the stats and all that. Like people are crazy about this shit. And it's a bummer because I've seen some people saying like, oh yeah, everyone called this. And I'm like, no, they didn't. I mean, it is obvious, but people weren't talking about it sufficient to how big it's going to be. I don't know why people didn't like to snuck up on. So it definitely did. And yeah, it's a bummer, but why that happens? I've just said in the past that I am continually confounded. 2 of the 3 people on the show are the same, or what I'm about to describe, which is like the gamer that doesn't care about sports. It's very common. I'm perplexed by the lack of crossover between these 2 things. I love sports and I love video games, and I've always loved sports and I've always loved video games. And they feel like kind of similar tunnels to me in my life. But for some reason, they've been more segregated than I would have liked. And I think that it results in poor coverage of the games. And when I was at IGN, I reviewed the NHL game every year. And it came to be that I developed a really nice relationship with the EA team that works on NHL and their producer, specifically Rammer. I don't know who works on that game anymore, but they liked me specifically because I knew the game and I knew hockey and I could talk about it and we had fun coverage of it and all of that. And it's so rare to find that. And I don't understand why when these games sell millions and millions of copies and people are really interested in reading about them. If I were IGN, I would have a person that really was like an expert in these games. Specifically, one person that just covered religiously Madden and FIFA and all the, or whatever, EA FC now and all that. So it's just bad coverage, but I have many blind spots too. So I can't say like I'm immune to that. All right. Shout out to EA. Shout out to all the kids who got paid to be in the game too. Exciting times. I think it was a modest $600 each, but it's better than the $0 you used to get when they would just put your number in the game with no name. You know?
Yeah. I just think $100 2.2 million times is insane for early access. It's like, it's pretty huge. That's like, even if I assumed it would be big because I deferred to your wisdom on it because you're a sports person. But like, that's mind-blowingly big, even from what I was expecting. Like that's really a lot. So congrats to them. You know, that's sick.
Maybe you and little Chris Colin, Dustin Furman will get a game of college football 25 in soon. No?
Certainly not. Certainly not.
I felt weird not acknowledging this, so I just put it in the notes, but we don't really have to talk about it, but I know it's a big news item for people this week, is the Assassin's Creed Shadows update. So Ubisoft released a statement specifically to the Japanese community, I guess. And it's on social media feeds, and it's in Japanese and English and other languages. You can read it there, but I'm reading it off of Ubisoft's news site, where it's entitled Assassin's Creed Shadows, an update for the Japanese community, published on July 23rd. So just a couple of days ago from when we're recording. And I won't read all through this, but it's, I don't know, 500 words or something, 700 words, something. I have no idea. But it basically goes into the controversy surrounding this samurai or purported samurai who was black in Japan that the game kind of centers on, or one of the 2 playable characters is a female Japanese character as well. That's more of like a ninja, I guess. And this has been a heated controversy. The language barrier makes it difficult for me. I know you can translate everything on Google and on Twitter and stuff, but I just don't trust that these translations are necessarily right. I don't want to read them like they're really what it says. I just don't know how trustworthy it is, but it's been hard for me to gauge because of the language barrier, like how much of a big deal this really is in Japan. You see some people saying that this is becoming somewhat interesting. Like there's some people in their parliament that are upset about it. And I guess their right-wing political party has kind of taken aim at it in some sense, but it's hard to know if it's like really a thing or not there. From a PR standpoint, I just think that this is kind of a stupid thing to do. I don't know that they made the right decision to put the character in there to begin with, because I think they set themselves up for a lot of this kind of controversy, and maybe obviously so when you're first setting a game in Japan and then, you know, not seeing, I guess, that opportunity for what it is to tell like a uniquely Japanese story. And then some people would argue, well, this is a uniquely Japanese story nonetheless.
Yeah.
But they've kind of legitimized the controversy, which you don't often see companies do. And I think that that's an interesting and intentional idea, which makes it seem like, to me, they're nervous because it's a move. It's an aggressive move. What do you think of this, Chris? I have no real opinion on this other than to say, like, when you do things like, I don't want to say do things like this. It's like you made a creative decision.
Yeah.
And you made it without thinking it through from a lot of different perspectives. And you either have to own it or not, but don't get mad at people for noticing it. I'm kind of tired of that shit. You know, like where it's like, well, what do you care? And why does it even matter? And it's like, well, because people care and things matter, and it's our field and we care about video games and all that. And you're getting mad at people for just noticing an anomaly or something that's weird. And people are allowed to notice things, but Ubisoft didn't have to react at all, and probably I think would have been better off. But what do you think of this whole situation as it's evolved?
Yeah, I think having a statement about it at all is fucking weird. Like, I don't really understand the purpose. Like you said, I think you put it in a pretty good way. Like, it legitimized the controversy in a way that it didn't really need to, or they didn't really actually have to. Because I read through some of it, and it was kind of talking about like the historical accuracy or the factual representations. And I'm like, dude, Leonardo da Vinci builds you a tank in this franchise. Why are you making a statement about historical accuracy at all? This is not important at all for Assassin's Creed. So to even put a microscope on it in the first place is like hypocritically bizarre from a foundational level. Like I just I really don't understand what the point of this is. Maybe this is more about like the political or like the heightened political attention from, like you said, politicians and I guess like people in the right-wing party over there in Japan who are like maybe taking aim at it. Maybe this is something that they're doing as a result of that, because it's not just internet stuff. It's like now it's gone into like, you know, legislative discourse in some sense over there. But like you said, it's hard to really even gauge how true that is or how people feel really about it over there. You really have no idea how different cultures or different countries feel about anything if there's a language barrier, and you have to rely on secondhand sources or translations to really get a feel for that conversation. So I just feel like it's a massive L from Ubisoft for even addressing this. I really feel like even if it was ascending into the political sphere over there, I don't really see this solving that or alleviating any pressure. So this is really just a pointless statement, you know?
Right. It's kind of like a cascading thing for me where at the top level, it's like, do I think it's weird like that they made this creative decision? Yeah, I do. Like I personally do think it's weird that like you set a game in Japan and then it's almost like the meme of the Netflix movie where like every Netflix adaptation is like race swapped and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, isn't it obvious that you just want to like make a tried and true, you know, game about something that Japanese people take a lot of pride in or something they're really interested in? And I'm not saying that this isn't an interesting character or a relevant character or even a real character. I'm not a Japanese historian, but at a top level, I'm like, yeah, it is weird that you chose to do that. It is very blatant in some sense. And it's what I was saying earlier about like, why are you noticing? Please don't notice. Don't get mad about like, it's like, well, but cascading effect, like I was saying, do I give a shit? Not really. But it's because it's something I don't care about and I have no investment in. And either way, it's probably just going to be like what's funny is that you probably could just change the models and almost nothing would change in the game. Otherwise, like you could just get away with it just being some random Japanese man and that would have been fine. So it probably doesn't play into the story too deeply as well. But I guess the cascading effect that I'm describing is like, yeah, it's weird and it's worth noticing. I don't really care. And then you get to the third level of the cascade, which is, okay, so now you have a PR problem. How do you deal with it? Oh, you write a statement. Oh, the statement is in itself really weird where you like you were saying, Chris, it's almost like they want to have their cake and eat it too. It's like, well, it's always been a fiction, but it's very authentic. It's like,
yeah,
what? Like,
right.
It doesn't really make any sense. Anyway, Dustin, where are you on this? I think we're probably all on the same, maybe not all on the same page all the way through, but worth noticing. I notice. Do I care? No.
Yeah. Well, given the context that Assassin's Creed, as Chris was saying, has always been historical fiction, you take this root of an idea. It's like, oh, there is this guy. He was, what maybe was, maybe wasn't a black samurai. That's a neat idea to make a game about. Certainly. It's not normal for a samurai to be black during this time period, of course. So it's a neat idea to run with. Specifically, though, in this, this statement from Ubisoft, they say, despite these sustained efforts, we acknowledge that some elements in our promotional materials have caused concern within the Japanese community. For this, we sincerely apologize. So I think this is coming to where the having your cake and eat it too, where they wanted to be like, this is extremely historical. They've even made portions of their game, they've made separate modes where you can go around and experience the historical aspects of their game. So it is something that they pride themselves on. They did that whole Egypt tour thing in Origins.
Yeah, that was cool.
I think and I'm very obviously not Japanese. I am just an observer of that culture, right? But what I observe is that Japanese people are often very, I don't know if concerned or just they care deeply about preserving their cultural heritage, right? And so you see this game that's getting advertised as historically accurate, and at the same time doing the Netflix approach thing that you were saying, Colin. It's like, oh well, we're gonna make this guy a samurai, whether it was questionable or not. Wasn't there a thing too? It's like you can make him gay if you want to. And Japan's kind of like, whoa,
that was
whoa,
huge
whoa.
in the 16th century in Japan. Everyone was gay.
Right. So I can understand from a culture that's deeply concerned about preserving who they are and their history to be like, whoa, 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 you can't advertise this as a historically accurate game because it's not, So I get that. So I'm curious. I haven't deeply looked at all of the promotional materials for this game to know how far off base they were to say that historically accurate or whatever. But from what I know about Japanese culture, I think this tracks. But I don't know. They probably would have been better off just not saying anything and just trying to shift their marketing to be more to not talk about how historically accurate it is. If that was the case.
Yeah, it's not even like this is the first. There's a lot of media that's like about Yasuke. Like, he's actually like an interesting historical character. So, like, I just don't know why you wouldn't just run with that in the first place and just leave it. I think it's weird. I don't know. I really think they shot themselves in the foot by addressing it. Like, there's really no reason. This doesn't clear anything up, and it just kind of like shines a light on. Like a blatant kind of, we've talked about it already, but like having your cake and eat it too. It's like, bro, you're Assassin's Creed. What are you doing?
It reminds me a lot of, I get annoyed. I've made the argument in the past too, but it is annoying. It's an annoying, trivial thing when people talk about Star Wars and they're like, it's a movie for children. It's kind of like that sort of thing where like there comes a point where you're not allowed to criticize something anymore. Because it's a video game or it's an Assassin's Creed game or it was just, but my whole thing is just, you kind of just blew an obvious opportunity by being too cute. And some people noticed, and does it matter to some people? Yeah. And to other people, it doesn't. And my personal thing about the communication strategy is, I feel like they know it's a dangerous thing what they just did. And they must see something about needing to do that. That's what's interesting to me about it. I'm not saying this game's not going to do well. It's going to do very well. But are they seeing pre-sales are down 20% or the mood and the vibe around the game is just very negative or whatever? Like they saw something and they're like, yeah, we actually need to be proactive and say something, which would be a 9 out of 10 times thing I don't think you would do, but I think that from my perspective, like the whole argument about all of this, race, gender, all that stuff in the games industry, a lot of it is weird and often not, it's a phantom. Like it's not there. Remember we were making fun of people with that Kenzara game or whatever. And people are like, this game is woke. And I'm like, why? Because it's about black people. Like, why is that woke? And like, why is that weird? That you're telling more on yourself when you're upset about something like that, in my opinion. But this is something where I'm like, no, this is strange, in my opinion, a strange decision based on the history of Assassin's Creed. And I've said before in Assassin's Creed 3, what I thought was so powerful and interesting about it was that you played as like a Native American, which I thought was like a really cool thing. It's not to say this doesn't happen, that the man's not interesting in and of itself, that there's not other fiction, anime and shit like that and manga about him. It's just like, you could have just taken a much easier path like you did in every one of your games. And there would be no problems. And people have been asking about this since the first Assassin's Creed. You can probably find articles on IGN after Assassin's Creed 1 where it's like, where can this go next? And it was Japan. And so that's why I get annoyed by culture warriors today, and like they don't keep their powder dry. And so when interesting things happen, no one really listens to them anyway.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. The thing with Connor, though, is that Connor was like a completely fictional character, right? Like that wasn't like based on a person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, theoretically, you could argue that is more quote unquote woke than this Yasuke situation, who is actually like a real like historical character in the history of Japan. That's what kind of confuses me about this entire conversation, really. It's like, what about this? Because this character is real. Like, this is a real character who is ostensibly a samurai. There's like historical like debate about like what that even means, because the terminology for samurai didn't technically even exist at that time, but like the ostensibly like the figurehead or like the role or like what a samurai would do, he did. So it's just a weird conversation in general. And I really feel like the only reason you would make this statement really is because it's being talked about politically by people who matter in the country that you are basing this whole thing on.
Right.
I don't know if this would have really even been said if not for that. I'm sure there's like probably a lot of negativity around Assassin's Creed, but there's kind of always
it doesn't really matter. It's like when Call of Duty gets fucking destroyed on YouTube and then it sells 15 million copies.
Exactly.
No one cares.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think it's also worth looking at and considering that it's not that Japan is like gatekeepers of foreigners telling stories or making games about Japan. Because I mean, look at Ghost of Tsushima. Right. They were pumped. They made a day for them. Like they were, and that game's not fully historically accurate. I think it comes down to like you said, Colin, the feeling of the Netflix approach to their history that they might not be too keen on.
Yeah, it just is what it is, like whether or not, again, it all comes down to like whether you care or not. But I get annoyed. You see it a lot just in politics where it's like, don't notice. It's like, well, okay. Right. But that's kind of disingenuous. If you're going to do something and like make a decision, stand behind it and at least think it through. But
yeah,
I think that it is much more relevant and interesting than most of the shit that comes up in that sphere of outrage.
Yeah.
I would say 9 out of 10 of those things are not worth being outraged about. But this is what I was saying before. Remember when we were talking about the Sweet Baby Inc. company, and I was like, people are so focused on like all of this nonsense about writing or whatever, but there's like this woman, I don't know if she's associated with that company or not, but it's basically saying like we don't hire white people and stuff. I'm like, that's racist. Like, why don't we care about that? She's racist. Yeah. But instead it's like, oh, they wrote part of the story of this game or whatever. And I'm like, but we're so distracted.
It's so poorly calibrated. It's crazy. Like there's like, that's an issue that I think most people would look at and be like, what the fuck? That's crazy. What does white even mean to you?
It gets into this political space. I think you can relate, Chris, where it's like people become so entrenched that they don't want to associate with they don't want to be against things that are obviously bad if they don't necessarily align with the rest of that person's opinions, because it's so toxified. Right. And so things never get solved because of that either. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's rough.
All right, some business happenings worth bringing up here. I brought this up because you don't see many acquisitions right now because it's so bad in a lot of different ways and it's expensive to borrow money and all the rest. But Business Wire has the press release. It says Warner Brothers Games acquires Player First Games. Warner Brothers Games announces the acquisition of Player First Games, the developer of their recently launched multiversus free-to-play platform fighter video game. Player First Games will continue to operate under the leadership of co-founders Tony Wynn and Chris White. Wynn, head of Player First Games, and White, head of technology, Player First Games, will report to Carlos Barbosa, VP and studio head of Warner Brothers Games San Diego. I put in our Discord, because I've been following this game not very closely, but I thought I saw that this game was kind of like not doing well, right? And then I think Ben had said something about like it's doing okay and they might be maybe being used for other things. But I was just surprised by this, because acquisitions are becoming increasingly rare. They're almost unnecessary and dangerous in a lot of different ways, but they must want to lock this talent down for a specific reason. Does anyone have any insight into the multiverses situation as it's currently constituted? Because it was in beta, right? Then taken off the market and then re-released. Anything to say about it?
Right. I feel like when it got re-released, I would think they were hoping it would be a big splash when it came back, but the most that I saw was they had toys at McDonald's for it. And that was the only real thing that I heard about it, but I didn't hear anybody talking about it or playing it. So I can't imagine it's doing well, but there are sleeper games that do well all the time that I am not aware of.
Yeah. Any word on this in your sphere, Chris?
No, I mean, I haven't heard much of anything. Like, I know a lot of, like, I have actually a lot of friends who are very, very into fighting games, and they play this for a little bit, but this kind of has seemed to have fallen off with them, at least. I don't know how I mean, that's completely anecdotal and not really a big enough sample size to really glean any greater information, but I don't think this game I don't think there's much stickiness for whatever this game is or whatever this game is offering. Although I will say, piqued my interest because I'm on their website right now, and I did not realize that you can play as Gizmo, the titular Gizmo from Gremlins.
Oh,
so like Gremlin main? I don't know.
I saw that there was a data mine that suggested that Barbie might become a playable character, which I thought was super cool.
Yeah. Heroic Mogwai warrior. All right.
I'm looking at Steam charts. The 24-hour peak was just under 8,000.
Yeah, I mean that's good.
That's better than a lot of games that really. Oh man,
it's better than Concord, right?
Yeah, that's better than anything Concord.
It's way better than Concord
in the beta, and it's beta, to be fair.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be better than that.
The free beta.
Right. We'll talk more about Concord in a little while. And by the way, if Holly goes into labor, you got to tell her, honey, wait. We got to talk about the Concord beta.
Have to.
All right, more business happenings. This is a little bit of a confusing story. Humble Games apparently is closed down. This comes from gamesindustry.biz. Now, Humble Games is a publisher of kind of indie style games that is actually owned by IGN, or at least its parent company, Ziff Davis. And apparently the publisher laid off its entire staff of 25-ish people. But then they released a statement saying that they're basically just restructuring and that they're going to continue to publish. I don't have much more information on it than that. I did look up some of the games because I was like, I played a Humble game recently. What was it? And it was that shooter that I played, Proteus. But I was looking around some of their other games too, and Ikenfell was one that I played, which was a really cool game, and a few others. But they're gone away. Have you guys played any of their games, published games? Anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, I'm looking at the list. Slay the Spire on here. I played a little bit of Unpacking on Game Pass, and that was all right. Not too many though. Now that I look, wasn't this Dodgeball Academia game? Didn't you play?
I played that Dodgeball Academia. I played that. I didn't beat it though, but I did play that.
Okay.
Cool idea. I got distracted, I think, and went off to play something else.
Oh, I think I played Void Bastards for a little bit, but
and they have some upcoming stuff too.
Yeah.
I mean, Well, I'll read this from Christopher Gorley because I don't want to step on his toes. He says, "Greetings, CCD. What are your thoughts on the layoff post by Humble? I understand that we should all show empathy, but in my opinion, these posts continue to ring hollow as the year goes on and more layoffs happen. I don't know that you're supposed to feel much of anything other than, a general sadness for people that are losing their jobs and all of that kind of stuff. But I'm trying to work on this thesis that I have that like game development needs to be approached by how much time you expect from a person. Like what is your you go into a meeting or you go into pre-production and you're like, all right, what's the budget? What's the timeline for the release? How much are we going to charge? How will we support it afterwards? But I wonder if people really ask themselves, at least sufficiently, how much time are we demanding? Like, what are we asking for? And when I look at a list of games like Humble Games is publishing, some good games on there and a lot of games probably that are great that I've never played, but it's like, who are these games for? And how do you support a structure of development as a third-party publisher, basically, of indie games with a staff of 20, 30, 40 people, whatever, selling this kind of stuff? There's just a real lack of understanding of the reality of what's happening around us, not by the consumer base, but by the people in the industry, that like, this isn't sustainable because you've not asked the key question of like, where do you fit? And that's what I think is the big problem with Concord. Is not that it's bad. I'm not going to play it. I can't speak to it, but it seems like a lot of people like it a lot, and that some people really love it and want it to succeed. And I want it to succeed, but it's like, where do you fit? And people are just kind of publishing games without thinking about this. And it's, as I said at our games at Lilimo, the studio, for people that don't know that I co-own, it's like, we want hours of your time. Give me a weekend at the most, a day, a couple evenings after work. We feel like it would be audacious to ask any more of that. And there are games being released on a constant basis that are asking so much. And there's just so many people to buy these games. There are just, I know people are tired of hearing it. I'm sorry, I'm tired of saying it, but there's just too many games, man. And so we should feel, it's not that these posts should ring hollow. These companies are going to continue to go down because there's just not a sufficient consumer base to buy this many games. That's it.
Yeah.
It's frustrating as fuck, man. Because people I think a lot of people in the industry are selling each other an almost cyclical false bill of sale, where it's like, yeah, we can get this game off the ground, we'll sell the game, and then we can fund the next game, and so on and so forth. That's the dream. But when you have 15,000 games coming out a year, I just don't know how you're going to succeed. And the time splitting between all of these games is just becoming an enormous problem. It's a big problem. And people I don't think are being, so when I see Humble Bundle, it's like, well, or Humble Games, it's like, maybe this should be a 5-person outfit with 2 games a year that we're funding. We find the perfect pockets, we find the right partners, the right price point, whatever, and be more deliberate. Instead, we have these just game after game after game after game after game just being shit out. And I think everyone deserves better. The players deserve better, and certainly the developers deserve better. Because it's a painful thing to have a game come out and for it to not sell. And that is the most common experience in the games industry. Kevin Raffa wrote in. Now, this is interesting because I had a friend in high school named Kevin Raffa. He spelled it with 2 F's. This guy spells it with 1, who disappeared off the face of the planet. Oh, and no one has ever heard from him again. Hi, DCC. Why are publishers not selling game studios instead of closing them? Thanks for your insight. There's no market for these studios. The IP is sometimes spun up with other entities, or the parent entity doesn't want to let go of the IP. The highest talent at game studios that don't pay very well leave and go other places. And so I know there's this idea that like, and sometimes entities do sell studios. I mean, it happens all the time. Rare is the most famous example of that. Yeah. But Bungie is another famous example of that as well. But generally speaking, there's not a lot of value in, like, people are like, why didn't you buy, or why wouldn't Microsoft sell, Tango? And it's like, I think they probably looked around, but it's like, well, what are you really getting? Mikami's gone, and the IP is going to have to be this, they're probably not going to let go of the IP that they own already. They're going to want to keep some value. It's just, it doesn't make sense. There aren't a need for more game studios. And I think that publishers are starting to realize, like, you don't really need to buy these teams, which is, again, why I thought that the acquisition by WB of the Multiversus team, Player First, was surprising, because it's just not happening very often. And as we say with Sony, it's like, there's only a couple of teams that would make any sense that they would do. So I hope that answers that. But shout out to those that are laid off. I hope that they land on their feet. But I just think we're going to continue seeing this because I think the layoffs are severe. But remember that this is happening in a pretty healthy economy. The economy's fucked up on the margins. The monetary policy is fucked up, but the market is roaring. And so people are spending money. And not all industries are experiencing this. So this is a right sizing, in my opinion. There's too many people in the industry. Anyway, I'm pontificating. I'm sorry.
No.
Capcom, Mega Man. I said we would talk about this. Video Games Chronicle, our friends over there, right? Capcom says it's considering how to make a Mega Man games on a regular basis. So there was a shareholder meeting in Japan that VGC listened in on, and good for them because that shit is so boring. That's why I watch the reels afterwards that Sony puts up where I can just fast forward through shit. So I don't have to watch it live because it's just horrible. So this was the 45th shareholders meeting, so the 45th year of Capcom. And they were asked about the plans for the franchise. And this is what they said, a very brief statement that's been making the rounds. Quote, Mega Man is one of our highly valued IP, and we are considering how to create games for it on an ongoing basis. And this is making the rounds and getting people very excited, but should they be? Andrew Dixon wrote in and said, hey, fellas, quick literacy question. Push Square recently published an article titled Capcom wants to make Mega Man games on an ongoing basis. While that would be an exciting bit of news, especially for resident Mega Man enthusiast Colin, I can't help but feel this is a case of misinterpreting Capcom's statement. The source of this news is a shareholder meeting in which a random shareholder asks for an update on Mega Man and is told, quote, Mega Man is one of our highly valued IP, and we are considering how to create games for it on an ongoing basis, end quote. This sounds far less committal than Push Square's article seems to state, especially when you consider that the context of the statement was the Q&A portion of the investor call and not the main presentation. With all your talk lately of illiteracy's ascent, is this another example of allowing what you would want to hear cloud what is actually being said? As always, I'm open to being wrong on this and would love to hear your thoughts. I don't think it's quite that extreme, Andrew, although I think you're on to something. Just in the sense that it wasn't part of the presentation. And that if they're telling the truth, and I think they are fiduciarily, we are considering how to create games for it on an ongoing basis. There's no plan in place. It seems like nothing is really moving except for maybe one game or whatever. I don't know for sure. We've kind of hypothesized about that in the past. But it's been 6 years since Mega Man 11, which had 8 years before that with Mega Man 10 and only 2 years from Mega Man 9. And there's been obviously a bunch of collections released and all the rest. I just think they're figuring it out. And I think the big thing I'm disappointed in is that there isn't a plan. Like, how do you not have a plan for this? It is an important IP. Like, I don't know why they've kind of just, they've given it a lot of love with really fine, they've set the standard in a lot of ways with their collections for these games. But it's like, dude, we want more. Like, let's go. What are we doing here? And I feel like this would have been more urgent, especially with all the money they've been making year over year over year over year over year. I think it's 6 or 7 years of growth. It's like, but where are the Mega Man games? I really hope that they have something in play and that this is speaking more towards a cadence where they can do it more often. And I think Mega Man is one of those series for them where I'd love a AAA 3D game like we've said, but you could also go in the opposite direction and embrace it as something that's lo-fi, low budget. And that was what was so great about those games, is that they were, the Innie Creates games, Mega Man 9 and 10 are special, man. They're really, really special games because they were made in the old style, like totally indistinguishable from an NES game. And it was wild. I loved it. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have anything to say about this. I know you don't have a passion for this series like I do, but it would be nice to come back. But I think you're onto something, Andrew. I think they're figuring things out. But I hope it's what I'd love to be wrong in that it's a feint and that they have something really great cooking. But I think they would have said so at this point.
Now, Colin, it was called Mega Man Universe, one of the projects that Inafune was trying to get out.
Right. That was like the Mega Man 2, like build a Mega Man 2 style game thing.
That feels like an obvious win with the success of a game like Mario Maker, you know, to have a Mega Man game where you can make your own stages, maybe customize the different bosses, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. That seems like an easy win, but I don't know. Maybe kids don't care about Mega Man anymore. Not that it's only kids buying these games, of course, but it is in a weird spot where it is a very kid-friendly IP that was probably originally geared towards children, but now is only adults that really care about it. Maybe Legends 3, bring it back. Maybe that's the approach.
I don't think any of these things are going to happen because it seems to me that like there's a real problem with Inafune and Capcom. And for them to like revive those games would have to give him credit and bring his name back into the mix. And I feel like I said at the time, those felt completely like total spite cancellations. Mega Man Universe was done.
Yeah.
Like I know someone that played it, it was Ryan Clements. He went to Tokyo Game Show and played it. And it's like, God damn, like it was done. It was ready to go. And they were just like, nah, never mind. And Mega Man Legends 3 would have been huge. And clearly they canceled that for, I think that really fucked things up for a while. And Mega Man 11 is really all that's ever come from that post Inafune period where things were really moving. And so I think they're trying to figure out what to do. It's true that it's not relevant with children. And I say this as there's things I like where I'm like, I understand who this is for, or what this is, and this and this and this. I do think Mega Man has the magic to be relevant.
Yeah.
It just, and it's in the cool ass boss designs. Like there's so many of them. These could be like the Pokemon level relevant if they just ever gave a fuck. And they always did it kind of half-hearted with like Battle Network was kind of there like, maybe we'll do like an RPG Pokemon style. It's not really Pokemon style, but it is like you're collecting cards instead of Pokemon and you're using them in battle. And I just feel like I wish that they would give it to, and I hope that they will give it to someone that or someone has it right now that knows what to do, because I feel like there is a way to do it, and I'll know it when I see it. And that was what was so great again about Innie Creates Mega Man 9 and 10, where I'm like, these are astounding works of art when you consider I've told you guys in the past, but like Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10 all together, and tell people and ask people like which ones don't belong, and they'll never be able to pick them up. And it's fucking awesome. So I hope that I really, really hope that they know what time it is. And there are people out there and there are companies out there that definitely know how to do it. So that's my hope and my dream for Mega Man. All right. A few other things, Capcom news here, since we're talking about Capcom. Did you guys see this? So Evo, I think, is happening now, right?
I think it's over.
Well,
it's over. And so during Evo, SNK and Capcom collaborated to release SNK versus Capcom SVC Chaos, which was an arcade game from 2003 that came to Xbox in 2004 and was never released on PlayStation until now. And it's on PS4 as well as Switch and PC. I was looking at the overall numbers of people playing. It doesn't seem like anyone really cares. And in fact, I never played this game, but it doesn't seem like it's a really well-liked game anyway. But that's out there and hopefully is a sign of things to come. Seeing SNK and Capcom both sign off on this means there are future considerations. I mean, imagine a new Capcom versus SNK, and imagine some of the more stranded games too, like Tatsunoko versus Capcom and other games. Like, could you liberate those as well? So there's that. Dustin, I was thinking about you with this. VGC writes, despite 90% of its new sales now digital, Capcom claims it won't stop producing physical games. And then the subhead is, the Monster Hunter firm predicts 93% of its sales will be digital this year. What do you think of that? It's crazy. That's a higher number than I even imagined.
Yeah, it is surprising. I would imagine that their dedication to physical comes from being a very Japanese company where a large portion of that, whatever percent remains is buying physical in Japan specifically. I did find it funny. I responded to our friend Genki on Twitter because he made a tweet about this. And I was like, yeah, they're saying they're dedicated. They're still dedicated to physical, but they just released a game that is digital only that we're going to talk about in a bit. So actions speak louder than words. But yeah, I'm surprised by this number. So they're predicting 93, but currently is at 90%.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It reminds me of, I think you just keep selling physical games as long as there's any demand for them.
Right.
This is why I was so confounded when Remedy didn't publish Alan Wake 2 physically. It's like, why not? I don't understand.
This is very weird.
Why you wouldn't do that. You don't even need, like, you have enough money to just fund it and do it yourself. Really, you do. But just select a fucking random publishing partner and have it done. It's very strange. Again, I have firsthand knowledge of this, having funded and published multiple physical games now. Like, the money is there to be made, and it's shocking that I don't play physical games, but I don't really judge the field if people want to play physical games. But as long as there's a demand for it, we'll keep making them. That's called business.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. And one more piece of news. Don't know how true this is, but it's been making the rounds, specifically on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors Reddit. Tales of Xillia Remastered leaked by multiple Slovakian retailers, which is very interesting. And they apparently have like this art for it and stuff. We don't really know if it's true. It uses the remastered logo from Symphonia's remaster, and so we don't really know what it is. But for people that are unaware, Tales of Xillia is a late PS3 game released in the West in 2013, but released in Japan in 2011. Considered one of the best Tales games by a lot of people, up there with Symphonia. I love Destiny as well, Legendia. And it was given a sequel, Tales of Xillia 2, which launched in 2012 in Japan and in 2014 in the West. So it's one of the Tales games that has a direct sequel, which is pretty cool. I have a really big soft spot for Tales of Xillia. Actually, am I on the wiki? Let's see.
You'd be on the wiki?
I am. I'm on the Tales of Xillia. My review is cited, which is funny. So yeah, I love this game. Have you? Well, you wouldn't have played it, Chris, but Dustin, did you play Tales of Xillia? Cool game.
The only Tales game I've played is the most recent one.
Oh, I was gonna say Tales of the Abyss. That's not what it is. Arise, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into what we're playing. It's all we have for the smaller news items. There's some bigger news items to get into after this. But Chris, let's begin with you.
Yeah.
Let's hear you're playing an old classic from 2012.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of work the last week, and I've had Still Wakes the Deep kind of sitting on my machine, kind of waiting for me to get to it. But every time like I sit down to start it, I kind of feel like I don't know if I'm really in the right mode for a walking sim right now. And so I've been like perusing my library, just kind of finding something to play in the interim. And nothing was really grabbing me until I saw it's like, oh, Hotline Miami. This is kind of chilling on my Steam Deck. And I forgot that I had downloaded because it's so small. I was just trying to get as many games from my library on my Steam Deck as possible. And I was like, okay, yeah, let me jump. Maybe, and I thought maybe I'd play it for like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or something. And maybe that wouldn't have felt right either. But I was playing it, and I immediately was like, oh, I forgot how good Hotline Miami is. And so I've been just going through that again. I can't remember if I'm sure it says it on my Steam stuff, but I can't remember if I had finished the original Hotline Miami or not. It's been so long. I know I played it really, 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 really thoroughly. But I'm working my way through it again. My God, it feels really good. It looks really good. I forgot how good it looked too. And I don't think I ever played the second one. So I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of on a wave where I think I might try and breeze through the first one again and maybe check the second one out. Because it's really hitting a spot for me right now where it's like it's a 2D kind of really simple game, but it's also fast, kind of like Ghost Runner, where you kind of like you die, you start up again immediately. Like there's no time in between deaths. And it's like I love that speed run kind of it's like speed run light kind of mechanic or game design, and it's really clicking with me right now. So I think I'm gonna stick with it. It'll be like a regular before bed kind of Steam Deck ritual for the next couple days, next week or two, before I jump into the next one, which I'm pretty curious about because I don't remember what the consensus was on the second one.
I think people like that. I didn't beat it, but I played it. I mean, Hotline Miami is I'm not surprised it's good on Steam Deck because it's perfect on Vita.
Oh,
And
yeah.
It's like the best place to play it. Oh, it's so good. The original Hotline Miami is a very, very special game. Very weird, very of the time, and unique. It's one of those irreplicable games. that we talk about,
Yeah.
where it's like you would be very hard pressed to make a game like this without totally aping it. And I love the weird story. I love the masks that you can unlock to give you.
Yeah, I totally
upgrades.
forgot about that system entirely. Like the masks, I remember there being masks, but I totally forgot. Like when I think about Hotline Miami, I just think about like about the chaotic kind of gameplay, the run and gun, kind of like breaking, like busting through doors and hitting somebody on the ground and then like bashing their head in. It's like comically violent, but like really overhead, so it's kind of cutesy and funny. But I remember the masks being cosmetic. I totally forgot that there was actually like gameplay implications to each of them, which is like obvious now that I remember it, but like just totally memory hold that entire aspect of it, which is definitely keeping me like. I think honestly, even despite the fact that it feels good to play, I think that mask hook is a really good hook. And it latched into me like a lot quicker than I thought, because I was enjoying my time with it like initially, like when I was kind of learning how to play, and then the masks came in and I was like, oh, okay, I totally forgot about this. This is sick. So I'm happy to have finally found something, because I've been kind of like meandering for a little bit. I am still playing like Elden Ring and Destiny 2 like on the side, but like I haven't found a lot of pull from anything right now. Like nothing's like really speaking to me. I do want to get to Still Wake the Deep as well, but finally finding this, like, oh, this will be like a ritual game for the next like few weeks is nice. I don't know. Sometimes you slip out of that headspace for some reason.
All right. Well, I'm always about playing what you want to play anyway. And Hotline Miami is so. If you guys haven't played it, for those out there who have not played Hotline Miami, it's really, really good. And one of those very
Super
unique.
good.
It's hard. I will say that it's really hard, but that's like Chris said. You get right back in just so easily, and the game's very fair. If there's nothing about it other than you and your skill, and that's it, and you'll figure it out. And it's so satisfying when especially the level of style in the game. And how that's like kind of wrapped in to the score. And it's like the more glamorous and crazy the kills, the more weapons you use, the quicker you go. Good shit. Really good shit.
I forgot about throwing weapons. And that's one thing I've totally forgot. I forgot you could throw a bat across the room and just nail people. It's weirdly satisfying for a game as simple as it is. It reminds me a lot of, I mean, in very, very few aspects, but like it's kind of hitting a similar vibe that Vampire Survivors did for me, where it's just like this very simple but like kinetic and very like, oh, this is like a really enjoyable. It's a lot harder than Vampire Survivors, I will say that, but no, Hotline Miami is an easy mega recommend from me anyway.
All right, I would usually let Dustin go next, but I think it'll flow better if I go first and then Dustin will end. William Planis wrote into us, said, "Hey, Sacred Gents, this one is for Colin. Last week you mentioned starting Still Wakes the Deep. What did you think about it? While I thought the gameplay was simplistic, the phenomenal voice performances and unique time and setting kept me enthralled the whole way through. The Lovecraftian monster growth slithering through every slit and cranny of the oil rig truly was the stuff of nightmares. I got to be honest with you, I was pretty underwhelmed by this game. For those that hadn't listened recently, I had replayed Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and beaten it for the first time recently, and then went and replayed Dear Esther. And I really, really like those games, especially Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. And I think Still Wakes the Deep everything about it is very cool, especially in premise. The setting, North Sea oil rig. The time, mid-1970s. The character, like an electrician who's kind of like, I won't spoil the story really, but like he's there for a specific reason and all the rest. You're right, William, that the voice acting is really, really great. The writing is really, really great. But the problem with the game is that it's really just you going from point A to point B to point A to point B to point A to point B. And that's not really the way the previous game, specifically, I would argue, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture played. And so Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is different in that it's an experience where you can just sit there and just kind of go through it, and it's about exploring. But that's part of what makes it so fun, is that it's almost a place frozen in time where you can see things and find documents and radios and listen to conversations in the ether and all of the rest. And in this game, you're just kind of moving to where the game wants you to be. And there's nothing to find. There's like very little to experience other than just what's there in front of you. And it's fun in and of itself, but there's something deeply missing in this game for me. Like it doesn't have the same heart, in my opinion, that Everybody's Gone to the Rapture had. And while Dear Esther is like a very short, linear game, I feel like there was just much more abstraction in it. But this is a cool game. It's like a real jump up for them from in a graphical sense. The first two games, Dear Esther and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, there's no one in them. Like it's just you in a still environment. This game is different. It's much higher budget. There's a ton of people in this one, all sorts of different characters you're encountering, all the rest. But it just felt like there was there's no reason to look anywhere. There's no reason to look anywhere you're not supposed to be. There's no reason to like glance off in the distance or look at a desk or whatever. There's nothing there. And I don't understand. I don't know. I've played most of the major walking simulators, and this is not what I was looking for, in my opinion. So, not to throw water on your fire to play it, Chris, but I don't know. I'd be interested to know what you think of it. And some people really do love it, but I think it's a very middling game. And it's I don't know too much about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Well, I was just going to say I didn't know. I don't know much about what happened with the Chinese room, but I think like the director of the game left midway through development or towards the end of development and some other things. And I don't really, I'm surprised by it. I was just like, I was hoping that I could really get into the nitty gritty of exploring this oil rig and finding like meaningful shit on it. And I know that kind of goes against the urgency of the story, but still that's what's fun about your games, in my opinion. So
it almost kind of sounds like Dead Space 2 Callisto in some way, where it's like Callisto's very, very linear and there's really not much there, but it's just kind of like a straight run from point A to point. Like you're just kind of going through it, and Dead Space is a little bit more meandering,
right?
Or at least that's like kind of like what I'm extrapolating from what you're saying.
No, I don't know. I just want. I know it's lame to a lot of people, but it's like give me some fucking audio diaries. Give me some documents. Right. Like give me some. There's so precious little of any of it. Like there's no reason to just be anywhere. You know. Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious about it.
Yeah, play it and see what you think. I mean, so I think Cog really liked it. So
yeah,
it's in the eye of the beholder. But the other, so I do want to play it again, and I'll try to get the platinum in it if I can. But I was like, I don't really want to play it again right now. So I went and bought the Capcom game Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, and I know you're playing it too, Dustin. So we can talk about this together. In my opinion, this game is pretty special in that it does something unique and Chris said he's shutting his AC off. Is that it does something unique and interesting. It feels like a truly novel game. In some way, it reminds me a little bit of, and this is a little bit of a stretch, but it reminds me of ActRaiser, the old Enix game, just in that it kind of unifies a few different things that don't necessarily go together. And in this case, I would say some rudimentary town building, but more about like real-time strategy or tower defense, but with an active participant that can kind of like augment the battle as opposed to just making preparations or just sending characters out. There's an active and a passive form of the gameplay, which is cool and different. It reminds me aesthetically, obviously, of Okami a little bit. It also reminds me of the old Vita game Soul Sacrifice, just in its aesthetic. And one thing I'll say about it is the same thing over and over again. And now that's every game, I guess, in a sense, but it does lose its luster. Like I loved it a lot more in the beginning than I do now. I still really like it. I'm going to play it all the way through. I'm really enjoying it, but it's definitely not. It doesn't offer a lot of variety. There's kind of like a cycle. You're basically, for people that don't know what the game is, you play as a character that is like a samurai style character that's charged with protecting this goddess like priestess as she moves through areas and she like decontaminates them. And so she moves very slowly. I was making fun of her actually with Micah, where I was like, why does she have to fucking move so slow? Like, why can't she just run to the other side of the screen? She does like a weird dance, and as she goes through, there's a day-night cycle, so you're sending her through these areas in the daytime to go as far as she can, while you kind of participate in some other tasks around her, like freeing captive townspeople that will then work for you, and getting currency to buy character classes that you turn all these townspeople into. And when nighttime falls, it turns into kind of like a tower defense game where you place different units around the map to fight off the enemies, as the goddess character is like not able to move and is kind of like really vulnerable to attack. And then the daytime comes back, all the enemies are vanquished, and she keeps moving through the map until she gets to the end of the door, where she like, you know, demystifies whatever's going on there and moves on to the next stage. So it's like a very straightforward game. And then you can go back to each of these places and kind of like repair them, which is this very rudimentary basic mechanic in the game. And there's items to equip that make your character stronger and all the rest. So basically this real-time strategy stuff is all happening while you are also able, as the samurai character, to participate. So you could just like run around and fight everyone and then go back to the other side of the map and start fighting, but all the shit's happening with or without you. It's a really cool idea. There's no doubt about it. Like a very novel idea. I wish that it was a little deeper in some sense, but maybe it gets there. I'm, according to the PSN Golden Path tracker, 46% of the way through the game. So maybe it does change fundamentally in some way, but it is what it is. And I really like it. I think the price is really right too at $50. So, yeah. But this was the game you were mentioning earlier that has no physical edition.
Correct. Yeah. Digital only. But yeah, I'm probably maybe about where you are, Colin, maybe a little less than that, but I think I agree with you in that it overall the basic concept of what you're doing never changes. But I think so far it's done a good job in that the way it's introducing new elements, in that, you know, there's a new type of character class that you can create that's really good at this. Like there's archers, there's the axemen, there's some kind of shaman character that can slow down enemy movements. And you can also choose to upgrade these different characters in unique ways. And I really appreciate that any upgrade on your different units is not permanent. So you can upgrade a character and then decide, I'm not really into this character. It's not working out. I prefer more to use this character as for my playstyle. You just switch it right over. And I appreciate that quite a bit. I like that there are kind of just standard levels, but then each level there's a boss that you have to fight as well that's separate from that level. And I found that all the bosses are really cool so far, both in their just how they look visually, but also a lot of them do have unique gameplay elements that you need to figure out. You know, usually they take 2 tries for me because...
Oh, interesting.
Well, I've had some that I've just beat immediately, but before you go in, you don't know what the boss is that you're going to fight. So you don't know what type of units to go more heavy on. So I've had a few times where I've died and then set up a new line of units specifically for the boss and then cleared it easily. But I would say the weakest part for me with this game is the town stuff in between missions where you're going back to the previous levels and repairing the towns. It just feels like busy work through and through, where it's like, I got to go back to these towns. So basically, when you go back to these towns, there's different stations that you can repair, and you have to assign the people of that helped you clear that level to repair things. But it takes time. It takes like 1 level or 2 levels of time for them to actually repair it. And this is the same process every single time. It's boring. It's not very good. But as far as the actual game itself, it's very fun. And as you said, very novel. I appreciate that in some ways, I agree that it's a negative that there isn't much going on outside of the main gameplay, but it feels very PS2, I guess. It reminds me of like older games where it's like, we don't need to do everything. We just kind of do this one thing that we layered new gameplay elements on. There's a little bit of side stuff, and that's it. It's kind of refreshing. And that's why the $50 price point, I think, is very fitting. But I'm enjoying it so far quite a bit. Surprised by it.
I agree that the character class stuff is really cool and deep. I was wondering what you were thinking about with the bosses, because I've actually beaten all the bosses on my first try so far, except for one of them, which was the worm one, where I died like 5 times. I didn't die. The goddess got too much damage, and I was so annoyed. I'm like, what the fuck? There are these weird spikes. Like, there are optional tasks on each stage too that you can do, and I've been doing. Have you been doing them? I've been doing them all as you go. So you
unlock the item.
You unlock like more currency to upgrade your dudes. Yeah, like each stage has 3 tasks that you can do. It's like beat the stage without using rations or whatever. And I've been doing them all pretty easily. You have to usually go back a second time to do them because you don't even know what they are. You can blindly get them your first time if you just stumble into them. And I got to the stage on the boats or whatever, and there's an option. Or have you done that stage? Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil.
Not yet. I don't care.
And there's an optional. That's really not a spoiler because I don't even know what the fucking story is, to be honest. But there's an optional task to kill these creatures before they get to the boat. 10 of them, and I'm like, I have no idea how you're supposed to do this. And I assume that like I'll get some class later on that will become quite powerful to be able to fight these guys. And I was going to ask you like what character, because you had brought up the mystic character. There's like a healer character. I don't even use them. Mm-hmm. I use just axemen and bow and arrow guys, and maybe 2 sumo guys. I do have the spearmen now, but I've not even really used them yet. So I've found that the basic axemen and arrow guys. You put the arrow guy on you repair the little station, and then you put him on there, and he just has like a perch to like shoot anywhere on the map. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I find I mainly, like you, am reliant on the axemen and the arrow guys, but I do really like the guy that can slow down enemies, especially when some of these stages you have 3 different portals or wherever that the enemies are coming from. So I try to put one of those on the main one where the strongest enemies are coming from, just in case I need to get back there quickly. But the healer is not very effective, I don't think. I'm wondering if you level the healer up more, but I was standing in the healing zone. I'm like, the healing is just too slow to make it actually viable for me.
Yeah, I find that the game is pretty. I didn't typically find myself without rations to heal myself or the party members. Mm-hmm. You do eventually unlock these abilities to kind of. So you're upgrading all of your different. You're upgrading character classes that go on every one of the characters of those classes when you select them. But then you get to a point where you can start upgrading yourself, and that makes the game a little more dynamic. And you can upgrade like some of your menu options, and one of the options is to get all of your people to come into one place, which is so convenient because it's annoying to kind of select them and send them all around. But I'll be on Summon Sign, I think, in the next week, and I'll talk more deeply about it. I will have beaten it by then, and we'll have more insight into it. But really cool game. I one criticism, and I get that this doesn't probably matter too much, but I just feel like the name.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Game names are translated all the time, I guess is what I'm saying. So it's just it's fine. It's like just a name or whatever, but it's just, you have to kind of know your market. I just feel like you want to give your game the best possible opportunity. And I just want to call it Path of the Goddess, which is a really great name, I think. And also it describes what the game's really kind of about.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Cool idea, though. Listen, if you want to support these big publishers doing really novel and interesting ideas in the kind of the AA space, go support this game. Good shit. And I think a lot of you will see the connection I make to ActRaiser, and just that it kind of blurs these two things together that you don't think about too often. All right. This leaves us to you, Dustin, to finish us off. Finish us off, Dustin.
I'll finish you off, certainly, in no time. Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I was a little soft on it last week. I think so. I was dealing with some of the shortcomings of it just being an older game, specifically the save. And if you die, you get booted back to the menu. That's still very annoying. Now that I don't know how far I am. I just got to, I don't know if I want to say if it's a spoiler, the big change in the game.
Yeah.
I think you said it last week,
right.
But I don't know. It's an old game. It's very old at this point.
And
it's been
re-released.
The Inverted Castle. I just got to the Inverted Castle. So a third left, maybe? Or is that half?
Yeah, I mean, the inverted castle's harder, but it's the same place. So it's literally half the geography, but probably take you 3/5 of the time, you know.
I think the thing with this game is that it was tough for me in the beginning just because haven't really played that much Castlevania. But I also just think in general, this game is way tougher in the beginning overall. And when I was reading other people talking about this game, one of the things people talk about is they love the escalation of power. And I can totally see that because now at this point in the game, dude, I'm like zipping through just like 2-shotting or 1-shotting people. Most of the bosses at this point I've done in one try, you know? So it made the game just through playing it a lot easier to the point where I understand now the times that I've started this game where I wasn't into it because I just didn't have that skill set. And so since I got good, I guess, much like in many ways, it reminds me of the play experience of a Souls game where at the beginning is often the hardest part. I think the beginning is probably the hardest part of Elden Ring minus DLC, where you don't know what you're doing. You have really low HP. You have low attack power. And then as you get stronger, especially if you go back to older areas, you can just blitz through things and it feels good because you feel like you earned it. So I'm having a much better time getting through it. There's been a few times where I'm not using a guide for everything, but there's a few points where I've thought, I have no clue where to go. I have no idea what to do now. So I'll just briefly look at a YouTube video to see what direction to go in and then go off from there. But yeah, it's a very fun game. I appreciate it a lot more than I did last week after playing it. And hopefully I'll be able to finish it for the baby comes, because it doesn't feel like a game that would be, I don't know if it's would be hard to come back to, but I'd rather just finish it now.
The baby Alucard?
The baby Alucard. Whoa. New things to consider. Perhaps. The other game that I've been playing on the side as well is Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. This just came to Switch a few weeks ago. This game is very much like the NES remix games that I think were on Wii and Wii U, if you ever played those. And so the whole concept of the game is that there's these mini speedrun challenges. So the first one is Mario 1, where it'll say, get the mushroom. And then you got to get that first mushroom in the question block in Mario 1 as fast as you can. And then you get a rank. So there's Mario 1, Mario 2, Mario 3, Mario Lost Levels, Kirby, Excite Bike, Kid Icarus, all these different NES games, and this whole plethora of challenges to complete. And it's been really fun. I've been learning what NES games I am good at and which ones I'm really terrible. For example, Ice Climbers. Fuck Ice Climbers. I fucking hate that game.
No, I love
I've never actually played it. I've only played the short segments in NES edition, Nintendo World Championship. And dude, I can't, you barely move left and right when you jump. It's aggravating, but I beat all the challenges. My goal right now is to beat all the speed runs and get at least an A on all of them. Some of them I've gotten S, but not a ton. The Excite Bike ones, dude. I played Excite Bike growing up, but it was just kind of messing around when I was a kid. Game's hard. Some of these challenges are insanely tough. My biggest complaint is that there are multiplayer modes where I think it's once a week they'll do a world championship where you compete in 4 different speedruns and it ranks you alongside people your age, which is kind of unique.
Someone wrote in about that this week, but I didn't end up using it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I think that's kind of cool just because if it was just the pool of everybody, even if you're amazing and maybe one of the best people that you know at it, you're still going to be, unless you're God tier, you're going to be so low in the ranks. So to kind of divide it up a little bit makes you feel like maybe you're doing a little bit better. There's also a mode where it puts 7 other players and it's, I'll say battle royale like, in that people get eliminated as you go, which is interesting. The biggest complaint I have is it doesn't have friend leaderboards, because that would be the most fun. It's so weird because even a game like Mario Odyssey, there were friend leaderboards for challenges in that game, so you could compete directly and try to get the fastest run in certain in a level or whatever. This one is a game that would be completely designed for competing for best times against your friends, and it just doesn't have that ability.
Very unusual that Nintendo wouldn't include something obvious on an online functionality.
Yeah.
So
insane. So I'm having a good time playing that game just a little bit each night, because it's a game where if I get to a challenge that starts frustrating me, it'll get in my head and then I start doing worse. So I'm on the very last Mario 1 challenge, which is to just beat the game as fast as you can using warp zones. And I'm a little nervous about that one. I've done it before, but I've never tried to just do it as fast as possible.
Yeah, the only dicey part of Mario 1 to me at this point in my career of gaming and having played it a fucking billion times, the only dicey parts are the 8 worlds where you have to kind of just time the Hammer Brother encounters. That shit's annoying as fuck. How they're just all lined up in a row and you have to just kind of like run. Some of them jump. You have to like jump over them. It's very hard to time that.
Right.
But up to World 8 is trivial at this point in Mario, especially if you can use warps. Yeah.
I always forget the sequence of the pipes in the final castle.
Oh yeah, that I would probably have to study that before I went back in there. Yeah, I would never remember that off the top of my head. Yeah. But great game, man. I love the original Mario. What a fucking special game. That game is dope. Oh my God, that game is fucking awesome. Love it. God bless the NES, dude.
You might like this game, Colin.
I'm sure I would.
It's a neat little game. It's been fun for me to check out the game, even if I hate them, like Ice Climbers. There's a few games that I didn't have a lot of experience with growing up. So that and Kid Icarus. I never really played that much of.
Dude. Oh, Kid Icarus is so great.
It's been cool.
All right, we're back with some news. I promised that we would get into some more news items, bigger news items. We have something from the first party to get into, something from the second party to get into, which we'll start with, and then some third-party stuff, third-party stuff that I think is important and interesting to talk about that just broke today. So let's get through all of it. We'll begin here at number 1. Helldivers 2 is easily Sony's biggest multiplayer game ever, with sales figures last reported standing at 12 million across PlayStation 5 and PC, and likely more around the 15 million mark as we record this episode. But having launched back in February, its astounding player numbers have fallen somewhat precipitously, which makes news of its first major update all the more timely and welcome. The update is called Escalation of Freedom, which is amazing, by the way, and it launches across PS5 and PC on August 6th. The official announcement is accompanied by a 4-ish minute video that interviews some of the devs and shows off a lot of the new features. And it's worth watching if you're a fan of the game. But here's the rundown on what's important. For starters, our harder difficulty setting is being added, combat rating 10. It's called Super Hell Dive and is described as developer Arrowhead's, quote, most challenging, most relentless dive difficulty level yet, end quote. And across higher difficulty settings, you'll notice that there's much greater mission variation, including, quote, new mission objectives and bigger enemy outposts for both bots and bugs that offers brand new super sample rewards. These outposts will be heavily fortified and require players to coordinate and strategize in order to take them out, end quote. New enemy varieties, vehicles, and attacks will also be in play. Returning from Arrowhead's original Helldivers game from 2015 is the Impaler, an enormous enormous bug creature that stops you from escaping overwhelming hordes. Terminids will also have access to new Charger-type enemies called the Spore Charger, which poisons and clouds the air wherever it goes, as well as a new Brood Commander, a more aggressive and stronger creature called the Alpha Brood Commander. On the robotic automaton side, new vehicles can be called in to make your life much worse. These include tanks equipped with dozens of rockets that can fire both directly at you as well as in the air, leaving you open to devastating bombardment. New mission goals, as mentioned earlier, will include the ability to steal terminid cocoons in order to bring them back for study, but the problem is that they'll be crying the entire time you steal them, drawing enemies to you. There's a lot more to read about on the PlayStation blog, and again, you should really just watch the video that goes over all this, as it's quite compelling. An interesting postscript, however, is that Arrowhead has made a key fix to kicking players out of games, which apparently is a major way some players grief others, robbing them of their earned resources and more. Kicking players out of your game as the host will now allow the kicked player to retain all of their earned resources and gear, which the dev hopes will return the game to its typical cooperative status. As you may recall, it was promised pre-launch that Helldivers 2 support would be free, and there is indeed no price tag seemingly attached to this content. which will allow the entire player base to participate. And this comes in addition to the some dozen smaller free updates and patches that have already been deployed. Dustin, what do you think of this? Did you watch the video? I watched the video. It looks really cool. Maybe I'll check it out. Hopefully they add some new trophies. I know a lot of people have been asking for that as well. That would be cool. I'm really fascinated by the kind of conversation around this game, though, about where it's going and why it might be diminishing in its player base so precipitously. But what do you have to say about it right now?
Yeah, we've been waiting for a big update. They've done smaller stuff like adding the mech, some vehicles, changing around some of the balancing, things like of that nature. But this is our first real big update, and I'm curious if this is going to move the needle long term. Certainly it's going to get a significant boost when it comes out, but I personally was really hoping for the first big update to include an entire new class of enemy, a third front to the war. And I would assume that that's still coming. Maybe they need a little more time for something like that, but the changes here all sound really good. I like the idea of the bug from the first game. What was it called here?
The Impaler.
The Impaler, yeah. Looks really neat. I'm curious about the vehicles as well. I wonder, the thing that frustrated me the most about Helldivers when I fell off of it was just that some of the balancing in the difficulty really annoyed me, and also the weapons. So maybe some of that has already been patched or fixed, but I kind of would have liked to see not just enemies to kill me, but also new ways to kill enemies, I guess, because that's going to be the core of how the game feels and how it plays. And I don't want to diminish this new stuff, especially before it's come out, but I hope that the vehicles and those types of things that really change up the core gameplay are kind of the main driver behind this. And I hope that certainly this is only the first big update of certainly many to come.
What do you, I was reading, and I don't know if you agree or know anything about this, that like, there's a theory that this game was fucked with too much and turned people off, not only with the PSN stuff, which is its own thing, but more keyly, like, I think they nerfed a lot of guns, changed some rule sets, and did all these kinds of things, which a lot of people were confused about since it's a PvE game strictly.
Right.
Do you think that has anything to do with the decline of the game?
I don't know about overall. It certainly was part of it for me when I am convinced that certain levels on certain difficulties were broke, because there was one instance where we were playing on a certain level and we're getting destroyed every time, and then we bumped up the difficulty and it made it easier. So there were definitely a few issues along those lines, but it's frustrating when you finally get a good flow with a gun and you feel like you're being effective, and then they go and nerf it or something. I understand the whole point of Helldivers is that it is stupidly difficult at points, but you don't want to change it to make it annoyingly difficult. And I feel like that was the path that certain changes were being made. These might have been reversed to some degree. I haven't heard about that at all, but I guess I would have liked to see more balancing, I guess, from the where it was before, or at least like new weapons or new strategies, new ways to play in that direction. I'm not sure. I definitely heard that sentiment a lot, though, that people were like, yeah, they keep nerfing weapons, and now I feel like I'm powerless in certain situations, where before I at least knew I could rely on this weapon to break off this enemy's armor or something like that. Because that was one of the big ones. One of the guns that was perfect for taking out a charger or something just simply didn't work anymore. It's like, well, this gun's useless now. That's the whole reason I used it. And then they got rid of that. So I'm not really sure what the point of that was.
Yeah, I can see people being frustrated about that. I was really into it for a month or so, and I just haven't gone back. So I don't know if I even notice any of the updates at this point, since I basically have to relearn how to play it at this point. Chris, are you attracted to the escalation of freedom?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think for me to get really, really excited about like a new Helldivers update, I feel like it would have to have maybe just a little bit more than this, but an excuse to jump into it after some time spent away from it, I think is cool. I think that Impaler thing looks cool. I do kind of miss Helldivers in some way. Like I fell off of it, not necessarily because it got boring for me. It's just because like there's only so much time you could put into the same game over and over again before you just have to kind of move on and try other things. And especially because Helldivers is, there's no single player campaign. There's no like competitive multiplayer. It's a very specific, limited kind of set of experiences that you can have, and they also kind of rely on other people as well, like, oh, who's free, are my friends open today to play this? So I never really felt like it got worse. I think it's just natural for games to kind of fall off over time in like some way, and I think the big fall off with Helldivers is not necessarily due to any nerfing, although I'm sure that has something to do with it. I think it's more about the fact that the rise was so meteoric and so crazy that you could really only anticipate like a similar fall. Like I don't think Helldivers reach and cadence is necessarily the natural reach or the natural cadence that it would have had in a vacuum had it not been for just it hitting at just a really opportune time. So I think it's probably still going to be a very healthy game, and as they put more updates, they're definitely going to get more players back, but they're never going to reach that crazy, like that height was crazy, and I don't foresee that happening probably ever again. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it looks cool. I love the name. Escalation of Freedom is an awesome name, and I already had some friends of mine hit me up about it where it's like, oh, did you see we're going to get on, right? And I was like, yeah, totally. So I have a group to jump in with. So yeah, looking forward to coming back to it.
It's just a great example of what we say over and over again, though, about the game being, and Sony, it's not Sony, it's just that the industry does it to itself by chasing these games that have to be big forever. But you can't even enjoy the moment with Helldivers 2 and be like, damn, that was fucking crazy. That this game was so big for so many people. It's what I was saying earlier about the time component, about what the game demands of people. Like, did you really think that hundreds of thousands of people at a time were going to play Helldivers 2 for more than a few months? It's just kind of unreasonable. And yet, because of these unrealistic expectations, people are now fixated on the game's decline when it's like, maybe it'll just settle at a really solid, Helldivers 1 was really popular and settled at this low lying level. Now, this is a more expensive game that's going to require more updates and all the rest. And I understand that, but it's just a bummer that games can't just be ephemerally big and that be a success anymore. Jeffy and I had talked about that on a recent episode of our Sacred Symbols Plus sub-series, where we were just like, people would have murdered for a game like this.
Yeah.
And been like, not even worried about like the long-term implications of it. Just been like, holy Christ, like, look how good we did.
Yeah, we got a success. I don't like the conversation around games, multiplayer games specifically, falling off and that being like a bad thing inherently. I just think it's really like if we had similar conversations the way that if we had conversations about successful games that fall off very drastically today, as we did if we took the way that we talk about them now and throw them back in time, like Halo 3 would have been a disappointment. Like all these massive games would have been failures or like fledgling or struggling, because dude, day one is always going to be the biggest. Like, I just like mathematically, like, you're not going to have 1 million players every day for 5 years. You're going to have 1 million players on day one, and then it's going to settle down and eventually settle at like a reasonable amount of people. Like, it's weird. It's so cynical and pessimistic. I don't, and look, there are reasons to, I mean, we're going to be talking about, which I think we're going to be talking about Concord later, and there's reasons to talk about these things, right? But with Helldivers, like, come on, like, I really feel like that's much ado about nothing as far as like the fallout of Helldivers is concerned.
And everyone just bases everything on the enigmatic game, the Fortnite or something. It's like, dude, I don't know, man. We gotta rejudge how things are successful. You're just never gonna find, or very rarely ever find, a game that is truly enigmatic like that. That just does its own thing. Helldivers 2 has been it's just frustrating. It doesn't really matter, but it's just like Helldivers 2 has been a great success. I wish people would see it for that. They're so fixated on its downfall as opposed to like what it did unexpectedly out of nowhere to the benefit of PlayStation. So it's one of their plays at one of those tables I keep bringing up in the fictional casino, and they fucking hit a jackpot. Anyway, all right, we are indeed going to talk about Concord. Number 2. Next month on August 23rd, Sony-owned studio Firewalk will release their first game, Concord, on PlayStation 5 and PC. As we already know, it's one of Sony's vaunted games as a service alongside the likes of Helldivers 2 and the yet unreleased Fair games. As you know, the game just underwent 2 beta weekends, giving anyone who was interested hands-on time, and to be frank, the numbers on PC specifically seemed very soft. Reactions were more mixed, however, with a lot of people liking what they played and others not finding anything in it. And it seems that the game is on a poor trajectory, though anything is possible. Perhaps to tamp down on poor word of mouth and regain the initiative, Firewalk opted to release a bunch of information via infographics posted on social media that gives us a little bit of a glimpse into an idea of what the launch product will look like. Some of this information we already knew, other stuff we didn't, but it'll be good to get it all out in a single news item for us to discuss. Though the Concord beta only gave players access to 5 maps, the final game in late August will launch with 12. All 6 modes available at launch were likewise there during the beta, and Firewalk promises that, quote, these lineups will grow soon after Concord's release through regular post-launch seasons and updates, which will introduce new free gunners, maps, and more, end quote. And as for progression rewards, Firewalk says the following, quote, the progression rewards you saw in the beta are just a small sample of the unlockable items in the full game. When Concord launches, we'll have hundreds of items to customize your free gunner, which you can earn just by playing the game, completing jobs, and leveling up your account and characters. These rewards are cosmetic, do not impact gameplay, and include free gunner outfits, wearables, and accessories, as well as weapon skins, weapon charms, victory and defeat poses, and drop-in animations, end quote. Firewalk confirms that Concord won't use any sort of battle pass-like system, instead, like Helldivers 2 and presumably Fair games, offering free updates to all players, including maps and characters. Though few people seem to be interested in nor riveted by Concord's storytelling approach, which in beta offered 3 separate story vignettes, Firewalk intends on continuing the release of those weekly to, quote, allow you to get to know the characters and learn about the life as a free gunner and the broader Concord galaxy, end quote. The game will launch with all 16 playable characters from the beta, and each will have their own variants that, quote, will be unlockable through progression and special weekly variant unlock jobs on the job board beginning at launch, end quote. A common complaint about the beta was how easy it was to make competing teams uneven by people leaving games, poor matchmaking, connectivity problems, and so on. Firewalk speaks to this directly, quote, ensuring teams are complete and evenly matched throughout a game is a priority for us. We are exploring a variety of methods, including leave or penalty systems, to incentivize players to start and stay in complete teams. Stay tuned for more updates, end quote. Another thing Firewalk speaks to is Concord's single-player functionality or lack thereof, which doesn't seem to be a priority at present. Quote, we will not have solo-specific modes at launch, but our lineup will grow over time through regular content updates. We look forward to partnering with the community to help inform how we evolve the experience with new modes in the future, end quote. It's worth noting that you can queue up to play certain modes solo, but none of them are specifically made for it to be played that way. Finally, another major complaint from the beta was that there was no tutorial, leaving players cluelessly learning how to play in-game. This won't be a problem at launch, end quote. Or, quote, alongside trying out different free gunners in matches, at launch you will be able to familiarize yourself with the core mechanics, movements, and select characters' abilities and gear in special single-player training modes, end quote. I threw an interesting link in here just that broke today that there's a DualSense, a wireless DualSense Concord limited edition available at PlayStation Direct if you want to check it out. It's cool. It actually looks really nice. This game, though, I wonder, Chris, how are you feeling about Concord with this new information learned? We're a month out, a little less than a month out now.
Yeah. I don't know. I've put some time into Concord, and I think there is something there. I do like it. I think it'll be a success. I don't think so personally. I think I talked about this at length on one of the episodes we did. I can't remember if it was the SSXDD episode. We talked at length about it, but I feel like there's a visual presentation issue with Concord that isn't an issue with Overwatch or other successful hero shooters, where it just doesn't look appealing, and that's kind of 50% of the battle when you're talking about a video game. It is your first impression, really, if you're not playing it, and because the barrier entry to this thing is $40, I see this thing not really hitting the way that they want it to, and even maybe even the way that it deserves. Like I feel like there is something there. I do like playing Concord. I am interested to jump into it once it's out. I will be playing it and updating my feelings on it once I get more time with it. But my gut check is that there's really no room for this. My gut check is that there's really no audience for this at the price point that they are setting it. And my gut's just telling me that this is not going to be this isn't going to be a success. That's just my gut.
What do you think, Dustin?
Yeah, I think this game is DOA right now. And I think it's important to have some nuance, particularly because the conversation, of course, online is super annoying for everything, actually, not just video games. But the problem is that I don't think Concord is a bad game. Even though I played a little more on the open beta weekend, not very much though. And I wasn't really enjoying it, but there were plenty of people that enjoyed it. But the problem is being good in gaming in general, but in particular in a live service is not enough.
Yeah.
Being good is basically, I think being just good is a death wish, especially not being free to play. And I think that they've kind of put themselves in this bad situation where I could see there being a future for this game if there wasn't a price tag on it. And certainly that would have to change a lot of things about the game. They'd have to implement Battle Pass, other ways to implement ways to get money out of this, right? But I think what is particularly tough is that right now, in addition, the Marvel Rivals beta is out. And to my understanding, people are really enjoying that. And that will be free. So, as Chris was saying, there simply isn't room for a good game in this market right now, in this genre. And so I just don't see, especially, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but when the beta was free on Steam and the numbers were not good, totally free to go check it out, and people still weren't interested. And a lot of people, like I said, there was a lot of people that liked it. I'd say there are very few that absolutely loved it and are pumped about it. And that's the problem, is that I think the beta may have actually been a little bit of a disservice in that a lot of people checked it out because they were curious about it. Like, yeah, this is good, but I don't necessarily think I want to spend, is it $40, right?
Yeah, it's $40.
I don't think I want to spend $40 on this when I could either go back to Overwatch or check out this Marvel Rivals game that's going to be free and potentially better. So as it stands right now, I would assume that they are in panic mode over this game and already planning a timeline when they can switch it to free to play.
Yeah, we have an inquiry about this actually. Nico Fargione wrote in and said, "What's up, gents? Concord is getting bullied. Typically, Twitter is an echo chamber, but Steam numbers for their open beta looked rough. Is this all anecdotal, or does Sony need to evaluate their launch strategy? Thanks, boys." I don't know that you can do anything at this point. I mean, you could, but it would look so bad for the game if you, at this very late hour for a first-party game, to just be like, "Oh, we'll make it free." It's just, I don't know, man.
Too late.
Yeah, this is a weird one because I just don't understand the progression of decisions that Sony made with this one. As we noted, Firewalk was making this game with other funding, and Sony came in at some point and was like, "Oh, we want the game." And then they came in later last year and bought them. And I think that's why we were a little bullish before we really knew what the game was. We were like, "Oh, they must really have something with this game." I mean, they want to lock all the talent down. They want to get the studio, under lock and key before the game comes out, because then the price is going to go up or they're not going to be interested. And instead, what you have here is, well, I'll let Justin D. Simone write in about and speak to this a little bit. "Hello, Sacred Boys. Given the recent reception to Concord's beta and the tepid at best public outlook on the game, do you think Sony made a mistake acquiring Firewalk? In some alternate timeline, couldn't Sony have used that money to instead acquire a team who could have worked on post-launch support for The Last of Us Online? Wouldn't it have made more sense to have this hypothetical team work with a small group from Naughty Dog who could be in charge of maintaining their development standards? Feels like Sony made a critical error here in their investments, and we missed out on something that could have been great. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I'm not even worried about what we could have had instead. Those resources obviously could have been used somewhere else. The Last of Us Online is complicated by, Naughty Dog's complete ownership over the IP and, the Civil War kind of situations that rise up when things are developed out of house and all that. And I'm sure they looked into all of that. And it sucks. I wanted that game to come out. It's a bummer, but I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about in this situation is just, why did you make this purchase? It seems like if this goes the way it's going to go, or I don't like being too deep. For all we know, as someone like works there and listens to this, and I'm not trying to like make anyone nervous or whatever, but it's like, if this goes the way it looks like it's going to go, that's the end of that team. I mean, unless Sony is just like, oh, well, we'll immediately invest in something else, or if they're really, really going to stick it out. And I wonder what the best is that they can really hope for at this point. It seems like it doesn't seem like it is an expensive team. The West Coast of the United States is one of the most expensive places to have a team. And this is a team that's made up of veterans from Halo and veterans from Destiny and people that are Overwatch, people that really can command high salaries. I know you want to lock them down. So is it, I guess I'm just curious where you go from here, because it just doesn't seem like this game has a prayer. And could free to play make it? I don't understand how you couldn't make $40 work, and that's going to be a problem financially, and then you send it to free to play, so people are playing the game but not spending money on it. It's not going to solve your problem. You've structured this entire development process a certain way to launch the game a certain way. Obviously, I think you're right, Dustin, that they're going to reevaluate that post-launch. They're going to have to if they want to keep this game going. I just feel bad, but I'm also just confused. And if you want to get like into the conspiracy theory weeds, is this purchase one of the things that really sparked the exit of Jim Ryan? People think it's the investment into this game itself, which is like, I think that the potential failure of this game is much more catastrophic for PlayStation simply because they bought the team. They didn't have to do that. They could have. It could have been a Helldivers second party situation, and you just been like, well, it's very similar to what happened with that PSVR2 shooter that failed and the team shut down. It's like, well, you didn't buy them, so unfortunately for them, it's not your problem, and you don't have to worry about it. The product didn't work, and you can kind of just write that off, and not literally write it off, but just move on. It's gonna be a lot harder to move on from this. They're undoubtedly within the period of still being paid to be there, waiting on dividends and all that. It's a very dangerous situation. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Concord. I really cannot speak to the game itself, like the gameplay and all of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not my kind of game, but I can say the aesthetic is bland and boring, as I've noted in the past from my perspective. There's just nothing remarkable about it from a visual aesthetic. I appreciate the story beats. I think that's a cool idea. I can see that really working out in certain games and being a differentiator, but not if you don't have a world and characters that people care about. You need to have that first. Then they'll get involved in your single player storytelling. And that seems to be kind of wedging, just as an outsider to Overwatch and all that stuff, that seems to be kind of replicating what they want, like what is meaningful in Overwatch, which is all of the, for a lot of people, are the characters and obviously the heroes and the storytelling there and like the interactivity between them and all of the rest. And I've seen like the wikis of these characters and it's like, it's insane. But you can't force that. That like comes naturally. I don't think Overwatch was designed to be what it is today. I think that they leaned into what worked and this is a mystery. I mean, this could go down as like one of the biggest bombs PlayStation has ever published, in the AAA space. You can go back to like the PS1 and PS2 and find a lot of garbage, but games that they deliberately get behind, that they buy studios for and all of the rest. And hey, man, this just gets back into my working theory that you don't jump into bed with these studios this quickly. Just like you didn't want to jump into bed with Bungie. And we'll see what happens with Haven. I have more promise in that game because I think that game does seem different. A lot of people are making fun of that though too. And if they can't get out of that cycle. But I have the feeling that game's going after a Rainbow Six Siege style game. and that's going to be very attractive, I think, to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we'll see. RIP in peace, Concord. I don't know. I wonder what the feeling is on at the studio. I'd love to know. Because they obviously have a total feel for what's going on, and it's not good.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. August 23rd. Number 3. Just added this one today because it just broke today from when we're recording. We try to take time on this show to talk about PlayStation's various international initiatives, and their China Hero project is, at least for the time being, the most interesting. As we discussed in the past, China Hero Project began during the PlayStation 4 era and is essentially a Sony-led production fund in which the company identifies promising Chinese-developed console games, helps with funding and production, and receives the game in question as a timed console exclusive for PS4 and or PS5. 6 games have emerged from this program so far, including Metroidvania Fist, Forge, and Shadow Torch, action RPG Anno Mutationum, horror puzzler In Nightmare, and others. And 11 more were confirmed to still be in development, ranging from action RPG Lost Soul Aside and multiplayer shooter Convaleria to roguelike Willis and the nearing release stealth game Evotinction, which I think comes out in just a couple months, all en route to PS4, PS5, or both. Well, thanks to reporting from website Gamatsu, we have 3 brand new China Hero Project games to discuss, bringing that 11 games in development to 14, and they are as follows. We'll start with a game called Lulan, that's Loulan. Described as, quote, a single-player action-adventure game developed by Chili Room. Players will take the role of a guard, using their unique abilities to explore and solve puzzles, experience realistic cold weapons combat, defeat powerful enemies, and fight against their own destiny, end quote. Second up is open-world action RPG Unending Dawn from Parse's Fate Studio. Here's a description in part. Quote, from the deep dark beyond reality, intangible beings emerge and strange colors crawl across the sky, filling the land with malice and taboos. Civilization built on layers of history, faiths woven from lies, all that mortals take pride in crumbled into ruins on the day of unending dawn. Yet some tread the path of cognition, unreached by ordinary folk, bearing the color curse that will ultimately destroy them, guarding the hope that sustains the world's existence. Color is both the source of danger and the genesis of hope. Which is your choice? The red of war, the blue of eternity, or the gold of destiny? Hope remains and the flame of belief burns everlastingly, end quote. Nothing has been more obviously translated from Google Translate. Last but not least, we have Project Jinwei. That's Project Jinwei. Described as, quote, an action RPG developed by the Lilu team of Kangmo Game Entertainment. It tells the story of a grassroots protagonist in the late Ming Dynasty who gets wrapped up in a conspiracy of intrigue in the aftermath of major events that occur in the era. With the help of various forces and his own growth, he gradually grows from a self-protecting warrior to a responsible knight. Players can experience cultivation elements close to the concept of martial arts, as well as unique styles and smooth gameplay with a focus on exciting battles in which you counter one move with another, and an immersive story and interactive experience, end quote. All 3 games will feature prominently at the upcoming China Joy Convention in China, which Sony will have a major presence at. And these Chinese games join a growing list of international endeavors Sony has been pursuing not only in China, but also in India with its nascent India Hero Project, and in Africa with its collaboration with African gaming giant Carry First. Dustin, I texted you guys actually both on the thread, on our iOS thread before this, to check these games out. Anything stand out to you about any of these games? 2 of them have trailers.
Yeah.
One of them doesn't.
Yeah. So for the trailer for Unending Dawn, this game looks like you took a character from the MiHoYo game.
Genshin Impact?
It looks like you took a character from Genshin Impact and then made a Sekiro, I don't want to say clone, but very deliberately the combat is very Sekiro inspired. There's a poise meter for a boss that looks exactly the same. But, that's cool. I like Sekiro style games. I like the blocking rhythm of it. So in an anime waifu, nothing to complain about there. The other game, can I say this right? Project Jinwei?
Jinwei?
Yeah,
I
think it's Jinwei, but
Jinwei. Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Jinwei. This one, when I started watching the trailer, very Ghost of Tsushima-esque in kind of the way, even the menus to some degree kind of look like that. The combat itself, with the way that the bars, the health bar and stuff is right above the character, kind of looked like Rise of the Ronin in some ways, like that style of Koei Tecmo game. So mixed of Ghost of Tsushima, maybe some Souls. Again, Sekiro, a lot of blocking. Not that any game with blocking is a Sekiro game, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, both of these look all right. This the Project Jinwei game looks like it's not that it still has a ways to go, I would say, based on some of this gameplay and the way it looks overall, but looks neat. I'm more interested in Unending Dawn, just for my sensibilities as a fucking loser and fan of Souls game. So
yeah, I like this.
I'll take 3 of them.
I'm looking at the Unending Dawn gameplay now, and there's like a Tales aesthetic to this.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, yeah. Yeah. And no video for the third one. They'll all be at the China Joy conference, though. I know you'll be there, Chris, in Shanghai.
Yeah. Oh, I'll be so excited.
Yeah. Anything here for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Jinwei is probably like a little bit more my speed. Something about seeing a very, very anime face on a real textured body in that Unending Dawn thing is like really, really distressing. I cannot unsee it. But yeah, I think if I was going to play any one of these, it would probably be Jinwei, and obviously that third one doesn't really have anything meaningful as far as like a visual. Like there's no real information about that third one outside of that brief kind of write up. So there's no trailer or anything. But Jinwei looks, I don't know. I dig the Ghost of Tsushima kind of style. There's certain like shots in it that I think are interesting. I am with Dustin though, where it looks like a little bit undercooked, not like quite. Like I feel like they could get away with it and just kind of like, yeah, this is just like the style of like how this game plays, and maybe it does play a lot better than it looks. That's always very possible. But it looks like it's got a little bit left to go in the oven. But this one spoke to me a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm looking the Leilu game specifically, or Lulan, I'm sorry. It says it's fun. I'm looking at it's all in Chinese, so I can't read the graphic, but instead of having links to places where you can watch there, because they're gonna have a presentation on the 28th, so we'll see more of it then. It points to all these like Chinese. It has like, instead of like the Twitter logo and all the different things we're used to, it's like Bilibili, TikTok. I think it's a Meta logo, and so on and so forth. So we'll learn more about it in the coming days. We'll see it, and then we can judge it better. But I just want to continue to focus on these games because I feel like, again, these are just such smart bets. If one of these or two of these turn out as something meaningful, I think it's just like so brilliant to just be in that and start cultivating these guys' first games so that their second, third games and so on and so forth. Not only do they have a predisposition towards PlayStation, but they know what they're doing. Yeah, and it's gonna be good. I think this is gonna bear fruit, and it already has borne fruit. Okay, let's end our episode as we always do with 6 inquiries, questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia, about all matter of topics. I put up a thread each and every week. You submit your inquiries, I pull them out. You've heard some of them throughout the show so far, and now we've gotten some last minute ones here as well. Skooma Vendor wrote in. I hope that's not like, I hope I didn't just say a racist thing.
Nah, you're good.
Hello, gents. First time writing into the show, but a long time listener. Can we get a gut check on Space Marine 2? This game recently just went gold and is out in a couple months. This is a sequel I thought we would never get, and as a 40k player, I think it looks great and everything looks as it should lore-wise. However, I haven't played the team's previous work, World War Z, and this game started under Embracer Group and has received a large delay. Just wondered what the group's thoughts were on this upcoming Gears of War-like title. Thanks for the great content, and remember, brothers, the Emperor protects. Thanks for writing in. I wanted to use this as an opportunity more broadly to talk about Warhammer generally. Just on if any of that stuff speaks to you at all. Because this game actually does look good, and I don't know if you remember the original THQ's Space Marine game was also very well received. This is a sequel to that. And you were saying, Skooma Vendor, that this started under Embracer, but it's still under Embracer, as far as I understand. So it's just under one of their subgroups. Whether the game will be any good or not, I don't know. I don't know if you guys also saw that the game leaked. A full build of it leaked.
Oh, really?
That's apparently a year old or so. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And the studio had to release like a letter kind of encouraging people not to play it and how disappointed they were and all of that or whatever. So some danger surrounding this game already. I brought him up in the past, my nephew Dash, huge 40K nerd, but he doesn't seem to be super interested in this game. He wasn't super interested in Bolt Gun either, which I actually bought, but I haven't played yet. But the reason that I'm not into Space Marine 2 is because I just don't know anything about Warhammer, and I don't know that I really care to learn. Although I did buy the Warhammer Power Wash Simulator DLC, so there is that.
Great entry point into the lore.
Yeah, that's exactly. I had no idea what the fuck I was cleaning. Space Marine 2. Any interest in this upcoming Gears like title?
Yeah, I've not played the original, but I've seen the trailers. I'm looking at a trailer right now again for Space Marine 2. It looks awesome. It looks, as the writer mentioned, very Gears of War-esque. It looks beautiful as well. And it has a co-op campaign. So this sounds like a perfect game I think they even have a 3-player co-op campaign. So a perfect game to check out with the boys. But I do have the same concern as you, Colin, is that I don't know anything about Warhammer. Sometimes it's fantasy, sometimes it's in the future with 40K. Apparently these worlds are connected. Sometimes you're fighting rats in Vermintide. I don't know shit. But I would imagine with this being a big AAA release that they're designing it in a way that you can just play it and enjoy it from a surface level. And so if it comes out and it's reviewed well, I'm definitely interested in checking it out.
Chris, will you set up your Warhammer figurines in time to play Space Marine 2?
Oh man, I think there's something about Warhammer that I don't know what it is, but as an IP or a franchise or whatever, I can't quite get into it. But I've played like Bolt Gun. I thought was awesome, and so like there's clearly something there. I'm curious why. Because Warhammer 40K and like Warhammer is a very, very big thing, but I feel like it's like weirdly underserved in video games despite that. I mean, we have Vermintide and I guess that original Space Marine game, but I can't really remember ever naturally coming across it really all that often, despite how big. I guess it's kind of like D&D, right? Where there's really D&D is a lot bigger than, you know, that terrible D&D game that came to PS4 and or like there was like a really kind of recent one in the last like several years. It was like not very good. It was like a Game Pass game, I think.
Yeah, what was that? I know what you're talking about though.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, I don't know. But there seems to be like a disconnect between tabletop and video games in the sense that like something can be very, very popular in tabletop and then just not make really any splash at all in electronic entertainment. I think that's really fucking fascinating. But this game looks sick. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't really care if I know what's going on in a game like this because it seems like it plays pretty well and it seems like the spectacle is there. It seems like the fidelity is there to give you a pretty good, gameplay experience. And, you know, maybe playing through something like this will get you into it a lot more than you might expect. So, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely curious about it. This is on my draft, if I'm not mistaken, if I can remember it. If I'm remembering my Sacred League or whatever it's called now, draft thing. So I hope it's good.
Yeah.
For my sake.
I found an answer. I think Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance.
Yeah, Dark Alliance. Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah.
From 2021.
Not very good. Not very well received, and not very popular, despite the fact that D&D is obviously mega huge as a tabletop experience.
Yeah, there are a ton of games. I guess I don't really appreciate how many of these are out there.
There's a ton, but none of them do like they just don't do like astonishingly well. And you'd think they do better with how popular those things are, but I think they're just such different modes of play that people are like, why would I play a video game when I can play the tabletop? I feel like that is kind of like a thing that happens.
Chris, this is on your draft.
Yep.
For fantasy.
Yep. Right. I hope it's good.
John wrote in, said, "Sup, sacred suckers. What is your favorite time to game during the day? Morning, afternoon, evening, late night? My personal favorite time to game is in the mornings on the weekend. Getting up and easing into my day with a game while I drink my morning coffee is the most relaxing thing ever for me. Thanks for the show." Thanks for writing in. Well, first of all, I want to say this because I was thinking about this when I put this in the document. A great way to see just objectively when you play, it's a little bit anecdotal, but I think it'll be representative, is to just go to a site like PSN Profiles and then look at the arc of when you earn trophies. over time, and it'll show you like a timeline. And I earn all my trophies like after 6, 7, 8 at night until like 4 in the morning. And there's like almost no trophy earning anywhere else because that's when I play. And so it'll give you a really good it'll identify if you've never really thought about it when it is you specifically like to play. There are games where I get really into them and I'll play them during the day and I'll play them a lot, but I typically, and I was telling Micah recently that I've been really trying to actively not play games during the day anymore, if I can help it, and just play games at night so that I can just get away from these screens for a while and just go do something else. So it's not usually until after dinner, and we eat at 7:30 typically, that I really start playing games. And then so evening into late evening is when I like to play. Morning, never. I don't know that I'd ever really play a game in the morning. And then afternoon occasionally. Yeah, I guess. Dustin, when are you playing?
I'm primarily playing in the later afternoon into the evening because that's usually when I'm done with my day work and before a show edit will come in. So that's usually on the weekdays. I got to shout out the morning gaming. I don't do it as much anymore, but when Breath of the Wild came out, Holly was still working at the coffee shop. And so we had one car. So I would get up with her at 6 in the morning, drive her to work, drive back, make a coffee, and play in the morning before I went to work. It's a very relaxing, nice way to start the day. So I like doing that, or I did at the time. I don't anymore. But I find that I don't like playing late at night because I feel like I'm not as good because I'm tired or something like that. So because I'm not a night owl as much as I used to be, I'm not really gaming past 11:30 or midnight at this point.
Chris, when are you playing?
Yeah, it's definitely rarely, if ever, in the morning. Like it has to be like a game that I've played until like maybe 12. I play it until I go to sleep, and then I wake up and I'm so stoked about it that I jump on again. Like, which is not it's a pretty rare kind of thing for me, especially these days. But generally, I think I've kept to the cadence of playing video games at like around like 4:30 in the afternoon, and then like extending all the way into the night. Like it's a really long window, but it pretty much excludes the morning, and I think it's largely because of just like a historical cadence that I got used to playing games after school. I think is probably what it comes from. I'm used to like, oh, the sun's kind of still out, but it's definitely like on its way out, and so like I don't feel as bad as about wasting that daylight. Because I'm kind of with Colin too, where I just kind of, I don't know, if the sun's out, I feel weird about playing. I don't know what it is. Where if the sun's out, I feel like I should be appreciating the fact that the sun is out. But when it's gone, it's like, okay, well, now it's nighttime. Now I can enjoy whatever. There's something to it. Also, just like minimal TV glare, especially with OLED, is kind of a thing to consider. But yeah, I'm usually like a nighttime person. I think like usually I feel like I peak out around like 9 to 1 a.m. is probably like when I play most, I think. If I'm guessing right. I'm sure I should do that. I should sign into one of those websites that probably tracks that, because I'm sure there's multiple for different platforms, but also I play on so many different platforms. It's kind of the issue of trying to keep track of all that. But yeah, nighttime's great.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yeah, if you go here, I'll send you guys a link, and you just scroll to the bottom, you can see like it shows. I guess it'll depend on when you're logged. If you're not logged in, it might have a different time frame, but it shows like I earn trophies late at night into like 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. and stuff like that, which is funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I've earned 10 trophies in the 10 a.m. mark and 14 at 9 a.m.
Is this real? Like, do you feel like this is accurate though? Like 4 a.m.
It's definitely accurate. Yeah, because it's all time stamped. You know,
right? But I was just wondering if there was any like time zone kind of fucking.
No. This is based on. This would be based on me being in East. Yeah, it says your current time zone is set to America, New York. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah. So it says like
really interesting.
I have 13,700 trophies, and I've earned. I guess my highest is 12 a.m. is midnight is the most that I've earned. Yeah, it is interesting. It's weird.
This has me, my top times are almost a tie for 9 p.m., 2 a.m., and 3 a.m.
Check the top and make sure you see where it says your time zone is currently set. You might not have it if you're not logged in, actually, so you might not be able to. Your time zone's probably off.
It is off. And when I click to change it, it says error processing this request. So I can't.
Bummer.
I can't change it. But
yeah, I don't know what the time zone would be. You'd have to adjust it. All right. John, thank you for writing in. Teeth Mummy wrote in. It said, "Hey, Sacred Bros, on a recent episode of his movie podcast, friend of the show, Jeff Kanata," I haven't talked to him in a long time, watched and raved about an old movie he discovered, only for a listener to point out that he reviewed and recommended that same movie 12 years ago on a different show he hosted back then. I don't judge or criticize, Jeff. I think anyone who consumes lots of media can suffer from memory slips like this, but it got me thinking, are there any games you know you've played and loved, but you can't remember a single thing about? It would be curious to revisit said game and see if you still love it. Are there games on your trophy list that show you played a lot of it, but you have no idea what it is? We talk often about what games you'd want to erase from your memory and re-experience. Maybe you've already set yourself up to do so and haven't realized it. I'll hang up and listen. I brought this up because I would say this is most games in some sense. I mean, I know how many games I've played. At PSN, you can see all the games you've played, but going back to to earlier times in my life, there are no doubt things that I don't remember. And I brought up Wild Arms 2 in the past, but I wanted to bring this up because that must be most of it. But I don't know. You see many more movies than you play games. So Jeff Kanata here is working at like a disadvantage, but I don't know that I would have not known that I didn't play a game after having played it and then recommended a second time. I don't know that I would have been in that situation, although the older I get and the more senile I get, there's no doubt that I'm going to experience this a lot more. Chris, can you relate to this?
Yeah, I feel like the difference between movies and games is pretty important to consider. Like I know for sure there are movies that I have seen that I cannot remember. Like I know that almost undoubtedly. Like that can't not be true. Just because I've seen so many movies. Even sometimes I'll like see a clip from something and I'll be like, I've seen that. I know what that is, but I have no memory of what comes before or after. And it's just like you got 2 hours of the movie and maybe you never see it again. But with a game, I just feel like, especially when you're younger and you have so few and you put so much time into so few, like I don't know if I'm sure there's games that I've briefly played that I forgot that I played. I think that's true, but I don't know if there's a game that I finished and loved and then forgot about. Like, I don't think that's true. From my personal experience. In fact, there's games that I played and really, really liked that I know that I like, but I don't know what the name of it is. Right. And I don't know like what it like that's the stuff that bothers me more, or that happens to me more. It's like, I know I played this PS1 like racing game as a kid that was like RC car related, but I can't find that. I can't find that game anywhere. And I was looking I was looking for it for years before I gave up, and that was like years ago. So maybe it's a lot easier to find now, but that's something that happens to me for sure. But I don't know if I would ever recommend a game for the first time that I've finished and played already, you know, like that's a very specific thing. And again, it's not to shit on this just Jeff guy, because again, movies and games are so different.
Yeah, they are. They definitely are. They're so much briefer. There's less to remember, and then you're less involved with them, and there's just way more of them, and so on and so forth. Dustin, any relation here?
I'm looking at my games. One comes up that I beat. I remember playing it on a plane on Vita, but I don't remember anything about it other than it was about a depressed guy, and that's Actual Sunlight. Do you remember that game? That was a Square Enix. No, I want to say it's indie. Actual Sunlight. I'm pretty sure it's about a guy that's depressed. An interactive short story about love, depression. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds familiar. What am I thinking of the Square Enix Sunlight game? I don't know why I thought that. Yeah, nothing's even coming out. Yeah, I don't know why I got that. Yeah, so there's one for you. There's one. The thing is, though, I remember playing it. I just don't remember anything about it. That's much more common the case with games.
Right.
Is that even games that I love, like the new Wolfenstein games, I remember them. I remember moments from them, but there's a ton of those games that I wouldn't be able to recall if you told me this happens in the game. I don't remember, but I remember playing it and remember loving it. But assuming with this, you said his name's Jeff, the guy, the movie reviewer guy.
Jeff Canado.
He probably watches multiple, maybe 5+ movies a week for decades now. And as Chris was saying, it's just a different commitment level that you have with a movie and a game. So I could totally see that happening, but games are just different.
Okay. Teeth Mummy, thank you for writing in. Sam Alien wrote in and said, hi, CDC, first time, long time. Quick question I had on the lexicography. How would you say this? Lexicography. What is this?
Lexicography?
Lexicography. Lexicography?
Lexicography, right?
Lexicography. Whew. Lexicography. Quick question I had on the lexicography or wonkishness of video games that occurred to me whilst playing Back 4 Blood with my wife. Do you know who first decided that the correct color coding for the rarity of loot in games should always be white or gray is common, green uncommon, blue rare, purple epic, gold, or other legendary? I'm not complaining, and I suppose it makes sense as you can play 90% of looter games and know visually the rarity of an item instinctually. Exactly how you just know squares always reload. Just curious if you might know who did it first, and or should someone try to break the trend? Personally, I like to see more tiers for greater variety. Thanks for keeping me company whilst I've been stranded in New Zealand waiting for my visa to be approved so I can return home to Australia and be with my wife and dog. I miss them both, so shout out to Georgia and Shark. Sam, be well. Stay safe. I like this kind of thing. We've talked about this in the past, that when a convention is invented in a game or stumbled upon, you should just copy it and create a visual language or an audio language control functionality language that translates through games. It's stupid to try to do it any other way. You want your game to be as accessible as possible. So I like seeing this sort of thing, and I've never really thought about it, but that is true, I guess, right? That those colors really do typically transcend various games. Chris, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, that's like establishing a language, and to break a language is to just kind of put a further barrier in place of in the way of a player getting to know your game. So it's just best to stick to conventions, or at the very least, like give twists to those conventions that are still very rooted in like whatever the tradition is. Like I never really thought about that when I was growing up and playing games, but like it is funny how like ubiquitous that is, and specifically how strange the scale is, where it goes from white, green, blue, purple, gold. It's just like a very interesting set of colors that by itself prior to a certain year would have meant nothing. There would have been no way to, but if I saw like even just like a color swatch of those colors in a row, I would be like, oh, that's item rarity. Like that's the item rarity scale. And that's very, very fascinating. I don't know that is an interesting question though. Is like who did it first? Like what was the first game? I would imagine WoW, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if that's in WoW. I assume it is. That's just based on how ubiquitous.
Colin, I did my job as producer. I looked this up.
Hey, very good. Game. Sorry, I was muted. Very good.
So I don't know if anyone can pinpoint exactly this article from a gaming stack exchange. Someone puts out early contender being Diablo or Diablo 2.
Oh.
But I was thinking certainly this comes from outside of games. Whether it's I don't know, a tabletop doesn't make sense because you're not picking up items, but let's see. Oh, non-gaming history. Coins in the Byzantine Empire. Yeah, I don't know.
Is there really no like actual answer? Like because if not, that's really fucking fascinating.
There has to be an answer. Yeah.
Well, you're right, but like not one that's like colloquially like understood to be true.
Yeah.
That's interesting in and of itself. that there isn't just like what game invented the modern scale of item rarity, and there's no answer that pops up on Google.
So I'm now on a Reddit thread. So again, just anyone can say whatever. A lot of people saying Diablo, someone saying World of Warcraft. That would make sense.
I would assume, like, my assumption, like, I didn't play a lot of Diablo, so like I'm not like super familiar with Diablo and like what it, like how it operates. I've seen like modern Diablo, and I know that they use it in modern Diablo, but I would just have to assume that it was World of Warcraft, just based on like the games that item rarity is normally shoveled into now, and based on like when I started to notice it personally, because I didn't notice that shit in PS1 for sure. Like I don't think there was any kind of color coded item rarity in PS1 games or even like early PS2. It was really after WoW that I started to notice it.
Someone is citing here that Diablo was inspired by a game called Angband, a dungeon crawling roguelike that looks like it's for old PCs, real old PCs.
What the hell?
Angband. So maybe that's the first.
But this is black and white, it seems.
Not the screenshot I'm seeing.
Oh, no, I see. It's just very gray. Huh.
This is like a pure text ASCII type.
Oh, interesting. What the fuck? It's not. This is a very rare occurrence that I see a game that I've either never heard of and never seen at the same time. Wow.
Sam. Yeah, I'm looking around here too. No answers for you. Well, some answers, but no definitive answer. All right. Ed H wrote in, said, "Hey, CCD. I was a sheltered Nintendo kid until the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation, when the threat of motion controls made me bail on Nintendo consoles, and I picked up a 360. As such, there are a load of franchises associated with PlayStation from which I had never tried a single game. I felt like I shouldn't jump in partway through a franchise, as I wouldn't understand the context for what was going on. I feel these are huge gaps in my gaming knowledge, which I would like to start filling. If you could pick one of the following franchises to get into from scratch, which would you pick? And do you recommend jumping into that franchise at any particular release?" His choices are Resident Evil, Metal Gear, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Sonic the Hedgehog, which is not really associated with PlayStation, God of War, and Yakuza. And he's saying pre-2018 God of War. So, Dustin, which one strikes you? He's trying to fill in gaps here. We don't know much about his tastes. He was a Nintendo kid. I guess that's maybe a little bit of a taste indication, but not necessarily. Which of these 7 franchises should he familiarize himself with first?
My gut here from seeing this list is Metal Gear is the best of these, as far as playing from game 1 all the way to the end. Resident Evil also be pretty good. Certainly many of these are all, well, not all of them, but some of these you kind of have to start from the beginning or you're really going to be lost. Like Metal Gear, you really should start at the first game. Final Fantasy, jump in wherever. If you want to go back and learn the context, it's not going to be context from a story perspective, since they're all independent from each other. Certainly there's things that cross over. Kingdom Hearts, you'd have to start from the beginning. We're not even going to entertain Sonic. God of War, I have only played a little bit of the first God of War, never played God of War 2. So I mostly just jumped into 2018. That was fine. Gene always says Yakuza, and many Yakuza fans say that you got to experience it from the very beginning. Resident Evil, you probably could jump in wherever, because there is an ongoing story, but does it really matter?
But who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Well, my answer is Metal Gear, because despite it not being a PlayStation IP, it is for some reason in my mind the most quintessentially PlayStation thing in this entire list. I know the God of War is a first party, but like there's something about Metal Gear that is kind of stapled to the iconography of the PlayStation to me, and I can't really see it in any other way. But also because it's over. And so you can realistically get through all of them without worrying about like a new one, or ostensibly it is over. Like they might try to do some new thing. But like realistically, anything that comes after this that is Metal Gear oriented that has nothing to do with Kojima doesn't actually count or matter. Like I don't think anybody here is going to suggest that you play Metal Gear Survive, for example. Like that's not part of the journey that you should be embarking on. There's also just like with Metal Gear, I feel like it's the most manageable list of games. So like Resident Evil, there's a lot. You know, there's the numbered games. There's Code Veronica. There's like these other things too. That's a hefty list. Kingdom Hearts is ridiculous with that. There's like mobile games and 3DS games and Engage games or whatever the hell. I don't even know what the hell. Like it feels like there's a Kingdom Hearts game on every single platform that is just not numbered. Sonic has nothing to do with PlayStation. I'm not sure why that's on the list. Yakuza, there's so many games. I just feel like Metal Gear is the most manageable, and because it's over, there's no threat of like there's like an end to the track. You know what I mean? It's over. It's like a reasonably like it's like a 5-season show. It's not sticking around so long. It's not 500 episodes. You know, it's the most manageable and the most quintessentially PlayStation, in my opinion, of the games here. But
yeah. To me, I mean, I think there's only two choices. You're right about God of War being the only first party thing, which I guess would have some sort of genetic connectivity to PlayStation. But Resident Evil and Metal Gear are really the only choices, and I'm intrigued by the order that you put them in. It's almost as if Resident Evil is at the top of your mind. Like, yeah, it might be one you want to consider. I think you can't really go wrong with either Resident Evil or Metal Gear. I think I would choose Resident Evil though, in my opinion. I think it's more even.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Finally, Eucalyptus Dick wrote in. Said, "Greetings, gentlemen. I have a question I hope Colin can answer.
It's awesome.
Why did games of old tend to have staggered release dates in different regions? For example, a game would release in Japan, then next week release in America, and then a few days later it would release in Europe. Wouldn't publishers prefer to have a strong day one, week one of sales as opposed to being broken up over multiple days and weeks? Thanks for the amazing content as always." It's an interesting question because this happens for all sorts of different reasons. And the staggering that you're describing about like being weeks and days behind each other is really a product really exclusively of that, like the PS3 and 360 era when that was happening. Typically what we would have, we brought up Tales of Xillia earlier. Tales of Xillia took 2 years to migrate to the United States. And a huge reason for that is that it's a major undertaking to localize and translate it and get it going, or translate and localize it and get it into Western hands. You have to go through certification again. It's not easy to do. And I think companies used to be much more risk averse. So they wanted to see how things did in certain regions and then play it by ear. And you're saying, wouldn't they rather have a strong day one or week one? I think that's more of a modern thing. I think back in the day, they were happy to get whatever sales they were going to get, however they got them, even spread over multiple quarters or fiscal years. But Eucalyptus Stick, a lot of the problem was just about localization, about global commerce and all those kinds of things. And things are much more unified and easier to roll out now than they've ever been. But back in the day, it was much more difficult. You had to be very selective about what games you were releasing in what territories. Could you acquire cartridges to make those games? Were you going to make money? If you had 10 games in Japan and you wanted to release 5 of them in the West, which ones would you release? Maybe you wait to see how they do. So day-and-date releases were like not really a thing ever until the 21st century. And PS1 was really the console that began seeing a confluence of Western games actually released first in many cases in the United States or in Europe, which was unheard of in the Nintendo era, with rare exceptions. So I hope that answers your question for you. All right, my friends. That's all we have for this episode of Sacred Symbols of PlayStation Podcast. It was a fun one. Let's go around the horn and say goodbye to everyone. Chris, goodbye to you. Be well. What's on your agenda for the rest of the day?
Oh, man. I got to go grocery shopping. I'm like running critically low on everything at this point. So I'm just going to go fill up my fridge. I think tonight's going to be a chill one. I think I'm just going to play some games. I think I'm going to definitely spend a lot of time on Hotline Miami tonight. And I also saw very, very, this has nothing to do with PlayStation, very strange update that I saw coming from Halo, where they were like, we put grenade jumping back in, which is, after 4 years, is insane, but good. Also a strange change to make for a game that is apparently winding down. I wonder if that means development's picking up again in some weird way, or maybe that speaks to maybe it might be coming onto another platform. Maybe, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird change to be making to that game, but I think today's going to be a relaxing Thursday, I think.
Excellent. Dustin, goodbye to you. Be well. This is your last episode, probably.
Probably my last episode, so I'll be back. Well, I don't know. We'll see if I get permanently fired. We'll see. I'm not going to be gone the full 3 months as far as recording, but I will be back at some point. I don't know. Tonight, maybe I'm going to go eat out.
Oh, jeez.
At a restaurant.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Holly's, I don't know. She's not too worried about this, but what if we're, sitting down, the food comes out, and then just water breaks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility.
Well, you create a story for everybody there, then.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's interesting.
The problem, I just feel bad. Someone's like, "Oh, you gotta clean up whatever that liquid is." I don't know what it is. I don't want to know.
It's water,
baby juice.
It's just water. It's fine. Drink it. If it's water, drink it, coward.
Yeah, mix some Fabuloso in there and just get to mopping. Might as well.
That's fine.
Well, Godspeed to you, my friend. We're happy for you. It's gonna be great.
Thanks.
Very excited. Name reveal: Chris, Colin, Dustin Furman.
Mm-hmm.
Coming soon. Have him editing podcast very shortly. Be wonderful.
That'd be great.
Yeah, get him working.
Put him to work. Have him do my job.
Yeah, that'd be great. You can retire.
Fantastic.
Little surrogate.
All right, my friends. Squirmin' Herman Furman.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
He's certainly squirming right now.
Yeah,
constantly. Holly's always like, "Oh, he's kicking me," and now he's big. He's ready to be born. He's abusing her practically from the inside.
Well, Godspeed to you,
Starting
my
early.
friend. Good luck. Be well. It's gonna be great. I'm excited for you. It's surreal.
Yeah.
No name predictions though. I have no idea what you're gonna name this kid. I really don't.
Yeah. No one has guessed yet. But I promise you it's not weird.
Is it Clive?
No.
I don't know. It's not a bad one, to be honest.
That was, well, I don't know. I guess I should. That was a name that was thrown out because Holly loves C.S. Lewis, the author, and his name is Clive. Middle name for C.S. Lewis, you'll never guess. Staples.
Oh,
really?
Interesting. Is that like a family
Clive
name or something?
Staples Lewis.
I thought it was like Suis or something.
He was a big fan of paper and rulers and all sorts of things, and he came up with this wonderful idea called Staples, the store, which he named after himself. It's a remarkable.
Narcissist.
All right, my friends, let's get the hell out of here. Be well. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access, etc. Laststandmedia.store for merch. bit.ly/Sacred Dukes to see us live in San Diego. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.